And what can you see on your screen from me now? Just me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I can't put the slides up because they obscure everything, including, oh, the number of participants is going up and up.
Yeah.
It should. We have awesome content today.
True.
My team meeting is all supposed to be now, so I'm my team meeting.
Okay, I'm going to put the slides up now. Now, can you see the slide and just nothing else?
I can only see video. I can't see any slides.
Yeah.
I see you.
You can see the slide and me.
I don't see any slides.
Yeah.
Wow. Brad, I think it's important that you see the slides.
Did you hit screen share?
It could be useful.
No slides.
Let me try something here. Now you can see something.
Now,
Yeah.
flowers.
Yeah. Now we can see
Now
something.
the first slide.
All right. I'm going to start, gentlemen. Good morning. Bonjour. Comment va? Grüß Gott. Namaste. Konnichiwa. And thank you for joining us, attendees and panelists. I'm David Sotella. I am the president of the Paid Search Association. And welcome to day 3, final day. Some will say the best day of the conference. Just want to run through a couple slides here. Thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate your attendance. We've had a great time over the past 2.5 days, and it's all due to you. Want to thank the sponsors who contributed their hard-earned money to make this webinar and our association possible. Microsoft Advertising is a platinum sponsor. That means they kicked in a lot of money. Closed Loop is a great agency. They're a gold sponsor, and PPC Editor is a great PPC tool, and they are a gold sponsor as well. I want to thank the speakers as well. These are the speakers that you'll see today. Brad Geddes will be moderating the whole day. Aaron Levy will be speaking. Frederic Valles. Jean-Paulo, oh my God, I misspelled your name. I'm sorry, Jean-Paulo. LaRusso. Werner Virgi
Okay.
will be with us later.
I can survive this humiliation.
Okay. And Nava Hopkins will be joining us as one of the panelists at the end of the day. And then I wanted to remind everyone that we have a happy hour following the last hour of Q&A. So if you want to stick around and chat with speakers and board members and other attendees, that should be some fun. Unlike the other days, I wanted to list contact information for speakers. Some of the speakers and panelists and moderators have agreed to let me put up their contact information just because they love to hear from you. And also, I wanted to remind people that, like everyone else on the planet, we're suffering from the monetary and mental health issues associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. And we encourage you to contact the speakers and panelists if you're interested in getting help with your PPC or get some great tools that some of the panelists have to offer. I'm going to leave this on the screen for a second so you can write this information down. And then go to the second one. This will also be included in the recording that we'll make available next week to attendees and registrants. Here's the last slide of contact information. I've listed my name at the bottom again, not just because I want you to patronize me, but also because of the fact that if you want to get in touch with someone who hasn't been listed, and it could very well be that I've asked for their permission at the last minute, send me an email. if you want to get in touch with one of the speakers or panelists or moderators that hasn't been listed here, and I promise to forward it on to them. Final thanks to the producers of the event, Gianpaolo, this is spelled correctly, LaRusso of Ad World Experience, Lisa Ressler of Big Click Co., Mike Friedman, who is the executive director of the Paid Search Association, and I'm listed here because you can send me information, you can send me suggestions for improving the event in the future. We also want to call out the physical conferences that many of you would be attending if it weren't for this pandemic. They are vital members of our PPC community, and we really want to encourage you to attend their conferences when they are rescheduled. And in the case of SMX, attend their virtual conference will be taking place at the beginning of June. So HeroConf has not been rescheduled yet. SMX, as I said, register for their virtual conference. Ad World Experience, Gianpaolo's conference has been rescheduled for October, and
Yeah.
when he speaks, he'll give you links and information about how to get involved in that. And then, of course, there is Venerable PubCon, which has not been rescheduled yet. The Florida instantiation is kind of in limbo. We're not sure whether it's going to take place or not, but it remains to be seen what happens with the Las Vegas version. The participants in this conference do get a 20% off membership in the Paid Search Association. So if you register with this code PSAC20, you'll get a pretty good discount off of membership. And we encourage attendees to join. We are less than a year old and building momentum daily. This conference is something that has been a labor of love for the organizers and board of directors of the organization, and you'll be seeing much more in the form of resources for education, more webinars, and surprises to become. So a little housekeeping. If you have a question to ask of a speaker during a presentation, use the Q&A feature of Zoom. You'll find it at the bottom of your screen if you hover at the bottom. And then if you click on Q&A, you'll see a popped up dialog box that will let you ask questions. On the first day, we disabled chat for attendees because we thought it was important for the speakers and moderators to communicate with each other using chat. And we revisited that yesterday. We left it open for attendees, and we'll do that again today. So attendees, please use the Q&A box for asking questions, but if you just want to make comments or communicate with speakers or moderators, then go ahead and feel free to use the chat box. And the last slide I have, we neglected to publish our code of conduct for our conference on the conference page. So I'm displaying it here. Rather than read through it, those of you who are viewing this as a replay can read it. And I am going to let Brad Geddes, who's the moderator for the rest of the day, translate this into human speak. But I don't want to make light of this. This is very important to us, and I think Brad can express it better than even these words can. So Brad, go ahead.
Yeah, just 2 minutes and then we're going to get to Aaron. But so usually conferences, right? And this is important as we think about more virtual conferences going forward. When people are behind computer screens, they're not visible, although we are right now. They don't have their human filters on, right? They're not thinking about how people understand what I'm saying, you don't have as much non-visual cues, and people are just honestly a little meaner, right, when they're sort of hidden behind a computer. When you're in person, you get to read the non-visual cues. You see oh my gosh, someone really is not liking this, and the face scrunches. We don't get that. right? So it's important to think about how your words and actions are taken by others. You know, we're all under a lot of stress these days. So the bullet point list: be nice, don't be a racist, don't harass others, don't use profanity. There's always better words, right? We're all equal. We're all here to learn and spend time with colleagues, right? That's why we're here, right? It is learning. So let's be human, right? The good human side we all have in us, right? Let's all be human and just have a good show. All right. It's important. Remember it. I'm not going to harp on it. You're all smart people. If you're here today, you're a smart person. So we're going to accept you can take it once and put it in the brain and not forget it. So without further ado then, kicking us off, looking at how automation works in a time of crisis, which is a really great topic these days, is Aaron Levy. So for those of you who can do virtual claps, right, let's give Aaron a nice clap. And there you go, Aaron. All right, rah-rah. And let's welcome Aaron. So Aaron, why don't you share your screen, unmute yourself, and thanks for joining us today.
This is the hardest part, is making sure we share the right screen, even though everything's closed. Okay, and that should work. I'm sharing the right one, correct? Good. Okay, so, I mean, look, largely, I'm going to be talking about COVID, but there's a reason why I called this automation in times of crisis, because this, well, we'll get to it. But in any case, I mean, there's no secret that Google, Microsoft, frankly, every marketing platform now is pitching automation and machine learning, and we're in complicated times. So a brief background on yours truly. You can obviously see my face already, but that's my face bigger and smilier. I oversee a large portion of the SEM team at Tenuity. I'm actually going to post on Twitter our brand story shortly, so everybody's like, what does that mean? That's a made-up word. Why? What happened? We'll share that because we just had our 1-year anniversary of our name about 2 or 3 days ago. A large part of my role, actually our team meeting is supposed to be right now, so a large portion of my team is now watching. Hi team. But a large part of my role is focusing on the future, so my team can focus on the now, figure out how to push all the buttons and pull the levers. My job is to worry about 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years down the line to make sure that we're all in good shape. I'm a member of the PSA board. I like to play outside a lot. I impulse painted my room bright green, which was a questionable decision, but is what it is. Okay, so I mentioned before that we are in unprecedented times, if you will. I did a quick search as I'm getting a little sick of hearing the word unprecedented or complicated or all that sort of stuff. So a quick search of Google News had about 76 million mentions of unprecedented. It seems a little low to me. But remember, when we're talking about automation, specifically with bidding, but frankly with a lot of things, they're not looking at context or emotion or humans, they're looking at data. So I was curious. So I took a look at some of our clients that were, I'll say, less affected by issues like fulfillment or volume or products being banned or things like that, and try to take a look and see what happened. So this is a brief view of some data for a large e-commerce retailer, considered a marketplace. They sell a little bit of everything. One of these represents the last 3 months worth of data, and it shows conversion rate over time, cost per acquisition over time, and cost per click over time. One of them shows the last 3 months, so quarantine. One of them shows the fourth quarter. We can't really do a poll here, so for your sake, do yourself and do yourself a favor and guess which one is which. Give a brief second so that you can write down your answers and then cross them out when I give you the right answer. So what's funny is I don't even remember what the right answer is. The top one is current scenario and bottom is Q4. Tough to tell. So when we're thinking about machine learning or automation, again, these things are not looking at reality. They're not looking at humans. They're not looking at emotions. They are looking at data. So they are seeing conversion rate spikes, CPC drops, CPA spikes and drops. These are the 3 core factors that smart bidding looks at. So what they look at is just this. So while the times are unprecedented, marketing in a crisis isn't necessarily about what's going on in the world. Certainly it is to a degree that we're trying to predict human behavior, but when we're thinking about machine learning, automation, things like that, we are thinking about data and how fast it moves and how fast we can get ahead of it and if our systems apply to it. So when we're talking about trying to predict human behavior, which honestly, if I had a different career, it would be a cultural anthropologist because I love trying to figure out what people are going to do. I took a look at one of my favorite books that I haven't read in a really long time, but it's called Predictably Irrational. If you haven't read it, it's a really interesting study, basically about the things that we make decisions about. And there were 4 core factors in here that I think apply to our, our crisis scenario, specifically our current crisis scenario. So, number 1, human beings are entirely focused on relativity, meaning that we can't generate value of an item on its own. These glasses, I have no idea if they're nice or not. I have no idea if they're bad or not. I have no idea if in a vacuum they're good or not, unless I have another pair of glasses to compare them to. For reference, these are blue light glasses, and I bought the cheap ones, which was a mistake. Don't do that. Buy the nice ones. But so number 1, we need to have something to compare things to generate value and to drive our decisions. Number 2, supply and demand is to a degree arbitrary and pretend. The example that they cite in the book is talking about, rare jewels, shiny things. Diamonds are a good example of diamonds aren't really rare. They're kind of everywhere. We just assign a value because someone told us that they're rare. So it's interesting. In the current crisis, you can look at ye old toilet paper, where all of a sudden toilet paper was richer than gold. I have plenty of toilet paper in my bathroom, but I still went out and bought some. I don't really know why, but it's because of that arbitrary demand that was created by arbitrary scarcity. So that's the sort of thing that we can predict as marketers and get ahead of, which we'll talk about. Number 3 is that social norms are more important than market norms. And this is really interesting, especially with what Brad was talking about with, with talking about the code of conduct and how people behave in their home versus when they're at a conference. That's wholly reflected in a crisis, and it's wholly, for lack of a better word, normal behavior. That doesn't mean that it's appropriate or not, but it means that we behave how we think our environment dictates we should behave rather than what we know is best. So the example they use here, again, we're thinking about from a messaging perspective. A good example of this is State Farm Insurance is like a good neighbor. State Farm is there. You're likely to be more forgiving of a neighbor than you are of a company. So if you treat State Farm like a member of your community, if they make a little mistake, it's okay. They're trying. Again, we're in a similar scenario where the companies that message in a way in a crisis, that message in a way that reflects, hey, we're doing our best and are transparent, versus people who are, wind up virtue signaling or wind up spewing out things that maybe aren't really true or trying to present. There was one brand that said, we lowered our prices to make sure that we're treating people better. No, they're not. You're just having a sale and you rebranded it. Be careful about that. And number 4, expectations beget outcomes, meaning that we see what we want to see. We will find, you can also call it confirmation bias. That is, whatever expectation we have for an outcome is the one that we will inherently look for and usually find. So what does any of this have to do with automation? So when we're thinking about automation, primarily from paid search, it's machine learning, which essentially means that it looks at past things to predict future performance, and then based on the past information it has, it tries to operate based on what it expects out of that. So when we think about it from a search perspective, from the things that we do, there's kind of 3 different ways that you can look at automation. I'm going to look at 3 different factors. Some of you may not consider automation, but I do. So first, of course, targeting. Second, bidding, budgeting, making sure these things work out. And third, messaging, all of which are automated in some degree, which can be a challenge. So we'll talk about targeting and keywords first. I teased toilet paper a bit before. So out of curiosity, I went and poked into Google Trends to see what happened. So these are spikes for a number of different things. I actually looked up the trends for recession, which was even more interesting because there were a couple of spikes that kept on falling off, and I was trying to figure out what triggered those. But when you look at things like video chat, everyone, oh my God, how do I do this? What am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do. Before realizing they have 11 billion apps on their phone that already do it. Again, masks. People went nuts the second they were mandated. People didn't look for them until they were told to look for them. Hand sanitizer. Again, it was a huge spike. It was a huge crisis. It was that arbitrary demand. And I think the most fascinating one for me has been home workout stuff. I'm really excited to see what Craigslist looks like after the crisis, or whatever version of Craigslist you have in your country. But all the people who made all these things, all these decisions to try and replicate normal because of that scarcity of demand rather than, a little bit of adaptation. So when we're thinking about, from a targeting perspective, how can we get ahead of this? Obviously we can't predict the future. We can't figure out, what's going to happen without someone else saying it. But what we can do, look, the easiest thing to do is to set Google alerts, or I personally use TalkWalker. Be a little bit more liberal with the alerts that you would set. A lot of us will have alerts set for our brand terms to see when our clients are talked about. I wouldn't do that. Well, yes, still do that. But what I would do instead is think about your top products, the top stuff that you sell. Look for production problems, because then you might run out of stuff. Look for mentions in the news of shortages, things like that. That's how you'll be able to get ahead of what might happen. Number two, we use Brad's tool Analysis for this. I think Frederick is going to talk about some scripts later on, but if you're not familiar with n-grams essentially slice out a piece of a query and find language snippets that may be rising or falling. So we would normally run those, for a longer term to find huge outliers. What I would instead recommend doing for both n-grams and regular search queries, run them really frequently for short periods of time and compare them to the short period of time before that. Because what you're going to want to look for is things that are spiking up so that you can get at the beginning of that uplift rather than the end when it's starting to fall off. And number three, I talked about this a bit before, but monitor your own inventory. Number one, if you're having problems getting a product into your warehouse, so are your competitors. That scarcity is going to happen, which means that people are going to start looking for it more. And number two is look at what changes, or if there are products that you have sold and haven't sold for a while, or things that seem like they're out of season. That is usually a sign that something is happening. And move your face. Number four, Google actually I candidly don't know if they just released this or if they've had it forever, but it's a little playpen that they have on Think with Google. And I'll tweet these slides out later so you don't have to write it down. But they're showing rising and falling query trends. Again, I think Frederick is going to talk about this. If not, he shared it before, but there's a couple of scripts out there to find queries that are showing up that haven't shown up before. So making sure that you stay on top of those to, make sure that you get ahead of the trends that are coming at the beginning and the end of the crisis. So dynamic search ads were actually something that we were a little bit worried about, especially as products go in and out of stock, or you run out of things, or you may or may not be able to buy them. So can you still use them? Yes, but you'll want to be careful about exactly what you want to do. So I took a little screenshot of Bed Bath & Beyond's page. So there's a couple things to watch for if you run DSAs. So first of all that stuff that you wrote about COVID and curbside pickup and stuff like that is indexed on your site. Number two is you have to make sure that you have a good user experience if you're going to promote things like curbside pickup. So if I wanted to go buy a nice new stand mixer because I'm all of a sudden a bread baker, turns out I can't and I have to go somewhere else. So Bed Bath & Beyond may have just wasted their money. I lost my little cookie. There we go. So can you use dynamic search ads in a crisis? Yes, but number one, be more liberal with the new pages and exclusions. And number two, I would recommend, you can think of search like a question and answer engine, that every search is a question and we're just paying to have the best answer. Things like curbside pickup, pick the questions that you actively want to answer and don't let them get picked up by DSA. Make sure that you give a real and active answer ahead of time. Number 3, if you're going to see a theme, I would say do search query reports more frequently and be more conservative than you normally would with dynamic search ads. Don't let them run too much because there's a lot of, in a crisis, stuff will move too fast for them to pick it up. So we'll talk about bidding and budgets, as this is probably what most people are the most concerned about. So this is a series of data from, again, a pretty normal apparel client, and this is their dayparting data for, again, 3 months that we've been in the crisis and the same time period from last year. Now, look, these aren't dramatic changes, but there are some interesting things here that we see spike out. So for example, the commuter spike that we normally get where everyone is on their phones on the commute to work, it's little now. It's not really there anymore because you're commuting upstairs or to your kitchen table. So if you had that area in your campaigns, I'm going to consider old school dayparting as automation because it is. If you're bidding up 9 a.m. or you're bidding it down, conversion rate isn't the same that it used to be. It's not as good. Number 2, Friday and Saturday nights, which normally used to be a huge drop off in volume, now has a spike. So everybody who does their virtual Zoom happy hour is already starting to shop. So this is a good time now as opposed to a bad time, which is hilarious until I realized that I have like 3 cases of wine coming, and it was because I did Quizzo on Friday night, and then I decided I wanted more wine. Whoops. Number 3, I was honestly thinking back and forth whether I should use this language, but it is what it is. The curve flattened, meaning that basically everything that we saw for dayparting and everything that we're looking at in our clients is shrinking, meaning that the spikes and drops are a lot less dramatic. So performance is a lot more consistent throughout the day as opposed to having a really good time and a really bad time. So I think the lesson to take from this is you have to look at the assumptions that you made before whatever crisis we're in, and then look at the crisis in a vacuum because the performance in the crisis is going to be different than before and different than after. Other fun thing as we think about geo is commuting and device behavior. So I talked about commuting a little bit. So this is a map of the Manhattan DMA. So normally during the work week, you would see most volume is kind of concentrated in lower Manhattan because that's where everyone works. But no one's going to work. So, you know, in a normal time, the morning and daytime would be concentrated in lower Manhattan. Evenings would be more spread out and a little bit thinner and sort of cover the whole thing as people go home, go to their tiny little apartment, what have you. Now it's much more steady, it's much more stable, and there aren't those concentration pockets, especially not around Wall Street or downtown, because people aren't going there. So on a related note, and frankly, I pulled this data en masse for all of our clients and the changes weren't that big, but when you go client by client, they're wacky. So take a look at your own performance, but I'd say on a blanket, what we're seeing is this is the first year over year that we've seen mobile volume shrink because so many people are trying to avoid screen time and they're by their computers at home anyway. So why would you use a mobile device if you're not really mobile? I don't know. Obviously, we're seeing a rise in computer usage as a result and a huge rise in YouTube consumption and OTT consumption. So that sort of strategy is really interesting. Tablets have remained kind of flat. Mine's still sitting over there and I still don't use it very much. But again, you have to look at this data in a vacuum to figure out what it's going to do and make sure that your old assumptions aren't broken. Probably the biggest question that most people have is, can we still use smart bidding? Is it moving fast enough? Are automated bids okay? For most of our clients, the answer has been yes. But the caveat that I'll give is that our clients tend to skew what most people would consider enterprise. We tend to work with larger clients. So in turn, we have a lot more data, so it kept up a little bit faster. So a good way to gut check it and give you an idea if bid automation will work in this time period is look at the last period of extreme volatile periods. So in most cases, what we found is the areas where a client didn't have smart bidding work or reverted back to manual or had to revert back to manual are people that also had trouble in their busiest season. So think of Black Friday. Did you have to turn off smart bidding on, there's no name for this, but the weekend between Black Friday and Cyber Monday? Did you have to turn off smart bidding because it wasn't moving fast enough and it was overpaying? If the answer is yes, then you might not want to use it now or in the middle of a crisis. If the answer is no and it kept up just fine, it's going to keep up just fine in the future. Number two, and this is something that people often forget, but when we were talking about how dramatic the spikes were and how fast they were, we've seen scenarios or heard of scenarios where, say you have a branded campaign and you set your budget to $1,000 because you want to make sure you capture every available piece of volume. That spike could happen at 3 in the morning and you will not see it. And you could very quickly spend $2,000 because engines decided they could double things. But so these spikes can be really fast. So what we've done for most of our clients is, rather than have a giant budget cap with a ton of headroom, knowing a spike could take advantage of it, is we lowered them closer to the moving average to make sure that if a spike happens, we won't accidentally spend a lot of money. And instead, we'll set tons of alert systems so we know when those happen. And number three, when we're talking about bid automation, again, make sure that your data is airtight, especially inventory. There's nothing worse than getting 100 orders for a product that you have 2 of. So make sure that those things are moving super fast, that your site is reacting, that your site is giving true information, and that you're communicating with your clients in a way that, with your customers, in a way that sets their expectations well. Last but not least, we'll talk about messaging, which is one of the more difficult things. So talked about this a little bit before. Swear if I see one more ad that says, "We're here for you." No, you're not. You're an insurance company. You're there when something breaks. Look, this is maybe a bit of me projecting my desires on the world, but I think the world is probably sick about hearing about the crisis and is probably sick of hearing about how you're handling the crisis. I'm not saying behave like things normally are, but what I am saying is maintain your brand voice in whatever shape it may be. So if you were a goofy company before, you can be a goofy company in a crisis. Make sure that you hold true to who you are, but make sure that you do it in a way that, again, you're conscientious of what the world is going through. And again, talking about automation is a couple of different shapes. So there's obviously purely automated extensions, but there's also extensions that you forget about and they show up sometimes, but not all the time. So the 2 on top are ones that, in my opinion, are pretty good. They stick to their brand voice. They have very cleverly integrated what they're doing to combat the crisis without being overt about it. So California Closets, biased as that's one of our clients. But so rather than booking an at-home consultation, they say book a virtual consultation. Perfect. Didn't have to change too much. Doesn't go too overt. Sticks with who they are. The TGI Fridays ad, I think, is great. Again, their messaging is kind of fun. It's on brand. It says, it keeps their fun feeling and says what they can offer. Then there's ones that are a little bit more iffy. So I don't know why the haircut place is running ads. I'm pretty sure that they just forgot to turn them off. But I think the painting one is an interesting one, where there's a lot of them where it's like, okay, schedule a free estimate, get a free consultation, set up an appointment. Can you do appointments? Can you not? You have to make sure that you're presenting these things. So the first things you have to do with your copy, especially with RSAs and extensions, is number one, make sure that you're not being tone deaf or that you're ignoring questions that people might have. Number two, closely review your extensions, especially site links, snippets, things like that. There's a very high likelihood that you have a book an in-home appointment or 24-hour delivery or whatever buried somewhere in one of your extensions. So make sure that it's not there if it's not true in the crisis. Number three, and this is the way that I would think of basically all ad automation, is it okay if your ad personalization is wrong? If a person gets the wrong message will the right message be okay? Or, will they get something that is completely off? That's a decision for you to make, but do your best to try and make an ad be wrong and make sure that it's still okay. And this is an interesting one too. We encountered this as well where, very often when you have a big sale, you will turn an ad off and turn another one back on, and you'll turn off your evergreens. Don't. Ad reviews are slowed. So if you have automated ads that go dark and go live, make sure that you keep the old ones live. So the last thing that I will do, and this is weird because I'm quoting myself, but there was a post that went out actually this morning on Think with Google. And look, the way that we're thinking of this and the way that we think of every crisis is there's no new normal. You can't look for things to return the way they were before. You can't look for stuff to, be the same way it was last year because, honestly, it might be and it might not be. I don't know, but looking for normal means that A, you'll find it because confirmation bias, as we covered before, and B, it's frankly just unrealistic. What we're looking instead is for data to normalize, and that's when our automation will really catch up and keep up and make sure that it stops kind of popping and dropping. So with that, that's the end of my session, and I think I'm actually right on time.
You're about on time. So let's do a couple questions, and then we'll wrap up, and we'll give you your applause you deserve.
Hey,
so
sharing. There we go.
Do you have clients who are stopping smart bidding right now, who've relied on it, and if you've said evaluate this, right? Do you have somewhere like enough, or you're just like, hey, we're cutting this off?
There, primarily that's happening when the like for industries that are fluctuating, that are really, really volatile, where, demand is spiking, or, if we have a client that's a marketplace, where inventory moves really, really fast, that like demand for toilet paper is really high versus demand for XYZ. For clients that are either normal or are affected in a sort of predictable way, it's for the most part been fine. It's kept doing what it was doing.
All right. So the lazy way, right, of doing this, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad, right, is some are using the Google seasonal thing, right, where you can just say, hey, my expected conversion rates are 20% less, and they're walking away. Good or bad to use right now?
I wouldn't, because that's again, the seasonal thing was generally designed to be short term. It was designed to cover like 3 days a week. It was designed to black out like really obscure spikes. It's kind of assuming that the entire period is the same, which is what we covered before. It's not. It moves really, really fast. So when you look at it in mass, it's a little iffy. What I would instead recommend, and this sounds less lazy, but it's really not, just check your accounts every morning. See if yesterday looked normal or weird. If it looked weird, did bidding do what it was supposed to? If it did, you're fine.
So regarding messaging, last week the number stated 47% of people were sick of the "we're with you" messaging. I saw the numbers yesterday up to 51%, right? Are sort of done with the stick with us messaging stuff. So I loved your first example of like just virtual meeting, right? Be subtle yet be cognizant. I think that's a really important takeaway. Any last thing you want to share with us before we wave goodbye to Aaron and we welcome Jim Paulo, I believe, next?
I'm not going
Any last things there, Aaron?
I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be here.
But... Yeah, I know you're going to be here, and you'll be on chat some, and you'll be on Twitter, so everyone can always find you. In fact, why don't you throw your Twitter in the chat when we're done here, so they know how to ping you there too.
Yep, will do. I mean, look, what I'll say for everyone is automation is not something to be scared of before a crisis. It's not something to be scared of during a crisis. It's not something to be scared of after a crisis. What you have to understand is that automation has especially Google automation, has a pretty short memory. Obviously they look at all history, yada, 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 but realistically it's like a week to 30 days. So as long as the 30-day period that it's looking at is consistent and realistic with what you're expecting it to do, it should keep working. But I mean, look, my biggest advice to everybody is understand what these tools do. Don't look at them as just, it's a hammer, it's going to hammer really well. Understand the factors that go in there, understand the factors that influence it, and then assess whether those factors are changing or reliable.
All right. So I wish, like, Zoom, we had a virtual clap button or something, right? An icon, right? But so thank you very much, Aaron. And Aaron will be around, so feel free to hit him up in the chat. He's going to share his Twitter icon, big a little, whatever it is. I only kind of remember all the Twitter names, right? There's way too many. There is one question that came in, but we're going to let you handle it afterwards because we need to keep moving. And so thank you, Aaron. And next to talk about, hey, how do we just auto-optimize this stuff, right? Let's not look at it. Let's just do it, right? We have Jim Paulo. So Jim Paulo, please share your screen. Everyone welcome Jim Paulo, who, gosh, I've known you the least of all our speakers today, and I think that's still 6 years of time. So it's quite a bit. So please share and let's welcome our next speaker. We can't hear you yet, so either you're on mute on your side.
No. I'm.
All right, there you go.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. We can see you. You're good to go.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I am. If you don't know me, which is more likely, I'm around. I've been around for a while now, in Europe, of course, in Italy mainly. But I've founded in 2012 the Outward Experience, which is now the largest event based on mainly on PPC real cases only. It's the largest in Europe based on PPC in general. I've patented in the US in 2016 a methodology to measure Google Ads optimization and performances, of course. And I've written what is which has been the best-selling book in Italy for Google Ads ever. And here you find a translation of an executive summary of the book. But let's move to the things here, to what we are looking at. It's a while I'm going around like. I hope it's a fraction of what Brett did, but I had time to see whatever you can imagine in Google Ads. I've seen it. There are only two ways to do a completely automated campaign in Google Ads. One is dynamic search ads, dynamic search campaigns, and one is smart display. If they're working, I'm happy, you're happy, Google is even happier because they can do whatever they want with your budget, but if it works, it's perfectly okay. But what about if you want to keep a little more control, but you don't want to pass all your day optimizing your campaigns? You have to use all the potential of the targeting potential of the platform without doing anything not really necessary to run and to have best performances in your account. This means, as first prerequisite, that you have to imagine a born to last campaign structure as I tagged here, as I called it here. The first requirement is this, of course, finally targeted, as I said before. Otherwise, your profitability is going to be affected. But they have to be sufficiently flexible too. Otherwise, you are going to manually have to change them every day or so. This means few keywords and very focused one for each ad group. So you can use long tail keywords in broad modified match. It's quite a suicide to use short terms, short keywords in a broad match or broad modified itself. But with broad modified and long keywords, 3 or 4 words in each key phrase, you can still maintain a little control. And then you have the possibility to use phrase or exact match for shorter terms and use negative keywords to sculpt the queries, the real queries for which your ads are being shown up. Negative keywords, there are 3 places in which you can find your best negative keywords. Among what is suggesting, Google itself is suggesting when you create your campaign. So immediately find what doesn't relate to what you are promoting and put it in negative. Search term reports, of course, you will see what people are searching for and what your ads are being shown for. And Google itself, if you search for some very generic terms related to what you are advertising, you can be sure you will find something you can put in a negative, as a negative keyword. I personally love negative lists because you can use, if you find something in one campaign which is not good for you, you can put it in a list and link that list to all campaigns you want. So just erase this cluster of searches from all your campaigns at once. Another requirement, of course, you have to test regularly, at least not once a day, of course, but once every couple of weeks. It depends on how much you spend, of course, every day, because the higher the budget is, the more frequently you have anyway to find something interesting to test in your ads, both with extended text ad and responsive ones, responsive ads, if you have enough traffic, because this new format, which is probably going to be the standard one, the default in the next months, is going to work if you have big numbers. But if you have little traffic and niche traffic, you could find that extended text ads are still performing better. Of course, because machine learning has not enough numbers to understand what people likes best, what people prefer to click on in your messages. I personally used to start from ads that get the maximum click-through rate, so that ads that people likes most, like the best, and the ones which are most published by Google, the one that Google likes best, the platform likes best. Doing variants from these ones will help you usually to get better quality score and better results in your campaigns. Automations, you can have a lot of automation in text ads too. Ad variations, dynamic insertions, ad personalizers, countdown if functions in different audiences, and so you can, of course, do a lot of have a lot of flexibility using these tricks the platform offers you. The second requirement for having an auto-optimizing campaign is bid management, of course. You cannot even think of manually set your bid, because of course this would require you to continuously monitor your campaigns. The requirement to have any form of automation running in bids correctly is, of course, having conversions. If you don't have enough of them, just create them. What I mean, here I'm sharing an infographic I did some years ago to let you understand what you can track in a site via Google Analytics, and of course import this in Google Ads. This is necessary because if you have no numbers to automate the bidding management, of course the platform will be far from being performance for having a good performance. That's why you have to track everything you can, probably using the last standards, because the last protocols used by analytics, both by Analytics and Google Ads, is far from is better. It's more precise than the other ones because of the cookie swap decided by most browsers. So this new standard is cabled in the number of your account, so in your cookies, so is far more performing in tracking your goals, tracking your conversions. If you don't have enough real, let's call them real conversion, you have to have numbers if you want to automate in the right direction your CPC. Of course, you can track downloads, subscriptions, even longer visits than your average value. Of course, this has to be limited to at maximum the 10% of your audience or your visitors. Otherwise, if everyone converts, it's like not having conversion numbers. If everyone is a conversion, of course, Google will search for these people, for everyone just going around for a while in your site. You have to isolate the iceberg top of the people who showed real interest in campaigns in your site. In this way, you can, of course, run enhanced CPC or maximize conversions or CPA, cost per acquisitions. And if you have an e-commerce, you can also try to maximize conversion value or ROAS. Another suggestion I give you to look at this standard of optimizing campaigns is control device optimization. Check your expenditure, your clicks, and your conversion rates. If you see different options, if you see numbers which are not good enough, move your bids to maximize performance. Of course, now the situation, as Aaron said before, is changing rapidly. A lot of people, instead of looking at sites with mobile devices, are looking more and more in desktop computers. So look at this aspect of your campaigns, because you will find something interesting more than not. Another thing, a really important one, is to balance your daily budget and your real expenditure, your daily real expenditure, because otherwise Google is deciding for you. At a certain moment of the day, they will switch off everything, what is converting and what is not converting. So you practically lose control of your campaigns, at least partially. Because of course, when limited budget label shows up, it means that it is not you any longer that decide what at least all times what is going to be shown of your campaigns and what not. Of course, because Google is not a non-profit. So how can you monitor also the budget allocation, which is the third step of this auto-optimizing process? Of course, you have to push for converting items, both keywords and placements in display, pushing for what is working. Do not forget indirect conversions. A lot of branded term conversions came actually, of course, from other more generic searches because they discovered you by a more via a more generic query and then search for your brand. Of course, branded queries are the most are by far the most converting ones. Even you can even evaluate to switch from last click attribution model to linear or time decay attribution model, because otherwise you always will overweight branded terms instead of more general queries. Remember that search picks are your account's best friends. If you are losing picks because you are every day up to the to your budget, limited by your budget, you will of course lose performance, because people with exactly search things that converted in the last days will not even look at your ads, will not even see your ads. Schedule, look at the schedule of your ads. Have a look at which days and hours your target is more reactive, and you can demultiply times in which you are you have you lost performance and times in which the performance is high. This is especially necessary in display campaigns, which are always on. Of course, in search campaigns, there is someone who's searching for something. So if he's searching for something in the middle of the night, probably something who cannot sleep, or more likely is a robot. But of course, in display, it's more important to have this control. Geographic optimization. Look at where conversion came in the past, and simply evaluate to multiply or demultiply areas in which your performance were poorer. Demographic optimization in Google, you can of course multiply or demultiply bids for audiences based on demographic data Google stores regularly. At least 50% of time Google knows if you are a man, a woman, and your age, at least for largest approximation. Finally, you need something to control if something wrong is going, is something weird is happening. So scripts are an excellent resource to do this. I'm here, I just picked two of the many resources you can find. One is from Optimizer, the company from Frederick, who has a very good repository of scripts, and adscripts.com, which is a European project, Dutch project, which has a good number of scripts. Automated rules, you can also use some rules to alert you if something is going wrong. So for instance, if you have an active campaign which is not registering, recording campaign, not recording impressions or clicks, for instance, just to say one. Or you can do it in analytics. I use very oftenly, for instance, a simple alert which simply send you an email if your conversion rates, if conversion rates of your campaigns is dropping suddenly, if compared with the same day of the week before, of course, so that you cannot, you are not influenced by daily normal stagional differences. So a small recap: flexible structure. You need a flexible structure, so scars are good for only a part of your account, if you like them. I actually hate them, but they work sometimes. You need also some more flexible targeting options. Bid management, of course, you need something to manage automatically your bids. Otherwise, it will be necessary for you to control it all the times. And then finally, you have to optimize, of course, the allocation of your budget, and you have to set some kind of alerts to know something strange is going on. That is all. And may the RI be with you. It's my sort of my claim. We can stay in touch if you want in this with these contact options. And I'm leaving to you some free bonuses. A free synthetic guide to this philosophy of living and doing PPC. So agile PPC. You can find it in the shop of Upward Experience. I can post also a link here. The infographic I mentioned before. I have also a sort of bi-weekly more or less, PPC news bulletin, commented with international speakers more than often. And finally, a promo code for the event when it will happen in October. And for videos, there are a lot of also Brad's video from previous editions in the Brad Fredericks, a lot of excellent PPC professionals you can find in our shop. So yeah, I'm ready for your questions if there are.
And just FYI for those of you who are thinking about your
Brad, you're very far.
I cannot hear you.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, because I'm in my mic out of the way. That's why.
Yeah.
Right.
That's better now.
Hey, so actually, a lot of us, Fred and I, were at Jim Paul's last conference. Several of the speakers have been there. It's unique, and there's a lot of case studies. So just sort of, if you're looking for a different sort of spin on conferences, it's a good one to go to. We're going to go through a couple questions, but in order to also get Fred here and not be here all day, if you want to look at some of them afterwards and type in some replies, that would be great too. So the one here that we should get to, you said it's okay to have low quasi-core keywords in phrase or exact match for a generic ad group if conversions are good. The low QS keywords don't harm the overall performance. That's a question, right? So let's just make this an easier question to understand. You got an ad group, it's almost all exact and phrase match. Most of the keywords have good quality scores. A couple have lower quality scores, but they still get good conversions. What should you do?
Good question. I usually, first of all, I look into what the problem is. The conversion rates is divided into three areas. One is due to click-through rate. One is which keywords is based on which keywords you are using in keywords and in ads and in the final landing page. And the third part is based on the on how Google is evaluating the quality of your page. So the first thing I would suggest to do is to look at these three personalized columns. And you will see if the problem is in the campaign or in the site. Because if it is in the site, of course, you have nothing to do. If the problem is in click-through rate or pertinence in the keywords, then you can manage to arrange something in campaigns. If this is the case, of course, my opinion is to keep both broad match modified and phrase or exact match in the same ad group. But a lot of professionals wouldn't like to do it. I usually do it to simplify the situation, and in this case, I suggest you to have a CPC a little higher in phrase and exact match version of your keyword, because otherwise you won't be sure that the platform is going to enter the auction with the right term, with the highest quality score term, even if they say it should be so. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
if not, then we can continue discussion in chat, right? That's fine. The last chat was don't get into SCAG. SCAG is the dark side. So that's a great way to end this, right? To wrap this part up, right? The dark side. I love it. I've always hated SCAG, so I've always railed against them. So our virtual claps, right, for Giampaolo. Thank you very much for that. Giampaolo, if you would take the links from your presentation and share like this slide or something in chat, because we can't copy and paste that as Zoom video, that would be wonderful.
Okay, I'll do it immediately.
Excellent. And now to continue our automation, right? If you could rewind the paid search speakers 15 years ago, you would see Fred and myself without any gray hairs yet, and in a much different environment, right? And so I think 15 years later, we're still speaking on the same topics, just there's a lot more gray involved. Kids are now around, which didn't exist yet. So I've known Fred for, I don't know, too many years at this point in time, I think. I'm not sure any longer, right? So please.
Where we actually got to get on planes and go places, like I'd literally see Brad in every city I went to, and we'd be on the same plane, and I tried to run away and he'd still be there at the next airport.
I know, right? Like I think last year we followed each other, Munich to down to Bologna, maybe back home, I don't know. It doesn't matter, right? Because what we're here for is the content. So Fred, it really almost an extension of what Aaron started us on, right? Is going to automation in the new normal world. Wonderful. So Fred, we're going to turn it over to you. We're running about 10 minutes late today, so just take 10 more minutes from your time anyway. I think everyone's at home and they're not going anywhere, so they're not going to run off on us anyway. So go for it. Sorry, David, I'm just changing your conference on the fly. That's what happens when you're an old man in the industry. You just do stuff, right?
Doing great. Doing great.
So Fred, please take us away.
Thank you, Brad. And great presentations, everyone. So, being sort of towards the end of these sessions, I wanted to try not to duplicate quite as much. And my focus is going to be a little bit more on some of the tactical stuff. So how exactly do you put scripts in play to do some of the things that the other speakers have said seem pretty necessary in the new normal. Now, sort of the sad thing is that I don't think we are at the new normal. We know what the new normal is. But one thing I do know is that automation This is the year of automation, just like every year is the year of mobile, right? We've been saying it for 6 years now, and this is still the year of automation. And actually, automation is being pushed harder, and we're being forced into adopting some of the things that maybe we were going to be slow about, but now we have to do it because of what COVID is doing in the world. So anyway, Brad gave a great introduction, but yeah, I go back quite a ways in PPC. So I joined Google in 2002, stayed there for about 10 years. So it was like 500 people when I joined. It was 60,000 by the time that I left, and it had gotten too big for me. But I'm a PPC geek, and I found out about these scripts that you could do, and I started building scripts, and they were really fun. And then that turned into a company today, which is called Optimizer. And then in the last couple of years, again, every year is the year of automation, I started blogging about that topic on search engine land, and kind of hit a nerve with some of those topics, and that turned into a book. So that's the book right there. So, and I'm actually working on a follow-up to that one because some of my thinking has shifted a bit, and I'll share some of that in the presentation today as well. All right, so let's jump into the content. But before I go into like the COVID level PPC and the new normal, I did want to talk again about automation being such a thing that we just have to use, and it is coming regardless of whether you want it or not. But I also wanted to say that, you know, automation, it drives efficiency, but it doesn't mean that we're being positioned out of our jobs. It doesn't mean we don't have anything left to do, right? So the PPC robot from Google, which I have made black, right? Sometimes it's a bit of a dark force, and not dark in like evil, but dark in like we don't know exactly what it's doing. And we as PPC experts, we don't necessarily really like that. We like to know the details, right? That's why we're having arguments about to SCAG or not to SCAG. Like if we didn't care about SCAG or no SCAG, then we'd be fine with Google doing whatever, but we're not, right? That's why we have the discussions. But so these automations from Google, really good at efficiency and automation. But I think what that leaves for us as humans is we need to put that control in place, right? So we need to choose which automations to combine, how often to run them, when to rein them in to retain a little bit more control. And I think especially Gianpolo was sort of alluding to that. So one example that I wanted to give, keyword match type related, and some of you may have seen this in presentations that I've given, but I guess it's kind of sets the stage for what we're talking about here today. But close variants, right? So close variants really have taken away our match type control in advertising. And if you think about how that works, well, when we said in the old days, we have an exact match keyword, there was that green circle because it would very tightly define for which searches our ads could show. The search had to be exactly the same as whatever your keyword was. But now if you look at that big expanding circle that gets, you know, green in the middle, but then redder and redder as you go out, basically what Google's doing is they're scoring every single search that happens based on how, quote unquote, same meaning it is to the original keyword. And so what Google is doing is they're setting a threshold. So they set a threshold based on what they feel comfortable with. And that's every search term within that red circle now, they consider a close variant. So they might show your ad for it. But us as advertisers, because we want that level of control, right? We have to use close variants. It's not an option, by the way, right? So we're forced into using it. But what we can do is we can actually say, well, let's rein it in. Let's put a tighter circle and make some decisions based on semantic proximity or metrics-driven decisions. And so we can try to set that threshold a little bit closer, right? And that's the control aspect. That's the process that we as humans can overlay on top of an automation. And a lot of people probably don't think about close variants as an automation. But when I think about automation, I really think about machine learning and artificial intelligence. And those really are the technologies that drive Google's ability to do close variants. And so I think there is a level of control that we can exert on it. And so kind of one of the big themes of my new book that we're going to have later this year is this whole notion of automation layering. All right, you could say, well, listen, we have to do a lot of search terms analysis nowadays because close variants from Google have made exact match no longer exact match. And that's a lot of manual time. But what if you could communicate to your friendly white robot or tool or script what you actually look at when you decide if a query and a search term is still relevant enough to your exact match keyword? There's probably a process you go through. For most of us, that's probably something like we download a bunch of data, we put it into Excel, we run some filters, and then we make a decision, right? So it's a repeatable process. And that's a process we can teach to our own system, or we can go to a JavaScript developer and ask them to put a script together for us. And now we can actually do automation layering. So we're not necessarily spending a whole lot of extra time, but we're still controlling the automation from Google. And so what that leaves you with is that PPC is better, I believe, with automation layering. And that's kind of the evolution of the thought that automation is better when you add humans to the mix. I'm sort of making the argument that the only reason humans are in the mix is because we want to control Google's system. It doesn't mean it has to be us as humans spending our time doing things. It means that we want to control the Google robot. And if that control is being done by a robot and an automation that we control, that is just as good, right? So machine learning will figure out close variants, but we instruct our robot, and maybe we say if there's more than 3 characters of difference between the search terms, something we can easily calculate in a little script, maybe then we make it a negative keyword and we don't allow Google to make it a close variant. Right? So that's kind of the whole backstory on automation and automation layering. Right? But from here, I wanted to jump into a little bit more of the COVID related content. So automation in the new normal. Well, automation, we have to use it, but it's actually really useful, right? And it's very useful, I think, for 3 specific things that we do. So in this day and age, when it's not uncommon to see budgets being cut because people are being more conservative, they want to protect themselves for an uncertain future. And in some cases, that means the consultant who was helping you on PPC is no longer there. In a worse scenario, maybe the consultant actually got sick, right? So that consultant may come back, but you have to do the same amount of work with fewer resources, whether that's fewer tools, fewer people. Automation can certainly help when that's the case. Second, and this has been talked about quite a bit, but I'll give you some specific scripts, is automation can find issues more quickly and even do this on an hourly basis, right? So Aaron was saying like, the thing you need to do in PPC is check your accounts every single morning. And that's absolutely true. But if Aaron could, he'd probably say, go and check your accounts every single hour. He just can't. I mean, he's got a life. He's got to do something else, right? He's got to sleep at some point. But a script and automation, yeah, no problem. Tell it to do it every hour and it'll send you an email when you need to pay attention. And if that email happens to come at 4 o'clock in the morning and it wakes you up, great. At least you woke up when it was necessary, when something was going wrong. And then third, as we find these things that need to change, and this is especially related, I think, to messaging, which the other panelists have talked about as well. But how do we put the right messaging in place when we run potentially, 50 accounts, thousands of campaigns and ad groups? It gets very tedious to respond to everything that's changing due to COVID, which changes very quickly, right? So what we can do from one day to the next in terms of like pick up, drive up and pick up, versus actually go to the store, versus you can't even go out of your house, like it keeps changing. So staying on top of that, huge amount of time that you could spend, but we can automate that, right? So let's talk about the first thing first. So automation lets us do the same work with fewer resources. And smart bidding has come up, and so I'm not going to give you necessarily my point of view on this, but I did want to share some things we heard at PPC Town Hall, and I'll weigh in with my point of view, right? And of course I will. But I wanted to share what experts have said at PPC Town Hall. So kind of in the early weeks of doing PPC Town Hall, and by the way, PPC Town Hall, that's something we started in response to COVID because we thought right now we're in such uncharted territory and people just need to learn from each other and hear what's happening because there is no best practice for this situation. In the age of digital marketing, like no event like this has happened. So we just don't know where to go. So what we heard in the early weeks from Kirk Williams from Zato was that automated bidding was actually doing relatively well, but sometimes in unexpected ways. So I've never been a fan of maximize clicks as a smart bidding strategy or an automated bid strategy. But it turns out that when COVID hit and a lot of advertisers went dark defensively, and it wasn't even like they weren't going to sell anything. It was just like, holy, what's just happening here, right? Like we need to shut everything down because we don't know what tomorrow looks like. And all of a sudden the CPCs get cheaper. Like, and Amazon started taking a longer time to deliver stuff. They even said, we're not going to deliver anything that's not critical, right? So Amazon drops out of a lot of the ad auctions. So the CPCs go down. So it's actually an opportunity to drive a lot more volume. And even if you weren't necessarily saying maximize conversions or hit a target cost per acquisition or target ROAS, you were actually getting more clicks. And some of these clicks were actually quite good. The other thing that Kirk was seeing was that, yes, conversion volume might have been worse, but again, due to the CPCs being lower, the ROAS, the return on ad spend, was actually better. So in that regard, automated bidding seemed to be working. And then a couple of weeks later, we had someone from Google come in, and he talked about how to make it better, right? And so here's the misnomer about automated bidding. Automated bidding is not fully automated. It doesn't mean set it and forget it. It means that Google is taking your goal, and usually that's a target CPA or a target ROAS, and converting that automatically into a cost per click bid to go into the auction. How that automation happens is they predict conversion rate and they predict the amount of sales you may get if someone clicks that ad. That's the only thing that's automated. What they do not automate is they don't look at your business. They don't know that you're having a big sale, or that your margins have changed, or in the case of COVID, that you've run out of toilet paper and no matter how many people search for it, you just can't deliver it, right? That's the stuff that is a business input. You have to look at your targets and change them based on what you know about your business and about the world. And so I agree with the point that was made earlier that the seasonality bid adjustment from Google is not the right thing to deploy in this case, because Google is actually picking up quite well on the fact that this is not a short-term seasonality event. This is kind of a longer-term thing. But if you are still going to have a special event, like my local restaurant last weekend, they actually had a huge sale on cases of wine. And like Aaron, I was like, ooh, wine. And I ended up with 3 cases, right? But it was a good price. And that's the type of thing they would have wanted to put a seasonality bid adjustment, because they were doing something that was driving the consumer to convert at a higher rate than typical. That's what seasonality bid adjustments are for. But so Google's point, was take a look every week, right? Maybe you were happy in the past setting a target cost per acquisition once and checking it every 2 months. But now, because the market is so dynamic, go and take a look on a weekly basis, and even consider the fact that some of your competitors have dropped out of the auction. Some of them are coming back into the auction. That is changing the landscape. That's changing the dynamic. That may have an impact on your performance, right? And so one way to look at it, for example, would be to say, I want to make sure my impression share is at some sort of reasonable level for whatever CPA I have. And again, a lot of advertisers don't realize this. When I talk to them and they say, well, I'm doing automated bidding, so what is there left for me to do? And I say, well, look at your impression share. They're like, oh, wait, I can still look at impression share when I'm doing automated bidding? And yes, you can, right? So you don't want your impression share to be too high, because that's basically restricting Google from trying new things. But you also don't want it to be too low, because if you have profitable conversions, you don't have a lot of impression share, you're leaving money on the table, right? So still look at that as a gauge for whether your targets are set up correctly. And then a little bit later still, we had Nava Hopkins, who was a panelist on these sessions, come in. And she talked about how to turn things back on, right? So we'd seen some advertisers have that knee-jerk reaction, and they said, okay, cancel or pause everything. Nava made the point that if a campaign was paused and then re-enabled several weeks later, the performance was actually not very good. And it almost required, in many cases, to be moved back to manual bidding for about 2 weeks to kind of build back up an expectation of what's going to happen. Whereas campaigns that had reduced budgets but were left active, even with a reduced budget, kind of came back on when that budget was increased. My speculation here is that those campaigns that were still collecting a little bit of data, like Aaron was pointing out, based on a 14 to 30 day of history, those campaigns saw what COVID was doing, how COVID was changing conversion rates. And when the budget was increased, it was like, oh, well, we already know what the conversion rate is going to be now. You're just spending more money towards it. So here's the correct bid for what you're trying to achieve. Whereas a campaign that was paused, you turn it back on, it's like, well, we remember 6 weeks ago, conversion rate was this, but now conversion rate is like, boom, down here or up here, depending on what you were selling. And so it gets really confused in the beginning, and it makes a lot of bad decisions. And so you're kind of wasting money to get it to relearn the things that it kind of missed out on over the past couple of weeks. So that's what we saw in bid management. Now, as far as the second thing, automation can help us find issues much more quickly. These are specific scripts, right? So here's what, and Aaron covered a number of Google Trends things that were about things people wanted to buy. Here's one that was really negative, right? So in the travel industry, there was a humongous spike when people couldn't travel anymore, when borders were closing. And so not surprisingly, there was a huge influx of people searching for cancel my trip. And that's returned back to normal. But these were new queries, and these were queries that advertisers were paying money to tell their customer how to get their money back, right? You want to pay money to give money? No, that's not what you want to do. So really, you got to find these search terms with big gains, with big spikes. And there's a little checklist, so you don't have to pay too much attention to that, but that's basically how you would do it manually. So it's kind of a cumbersome process, and that's why a lot of advertisers don't do it, because it takes too much time. Now, there's many scripts. I just wanted to point one out here from another great guy who writes a lot of scripts. His name is Niels Roymans, Dutch guy, so I can say his name correctly. It's kind of complicated to pronounce in English. I'm Belgian, by the way. I speak Dutch natively. But so what his point was, like, listen, here's a week over week change in search terms performance. And what you might want to do with rising search terms is check them for relevance and make them negative keywords if they don't seem that relevant to you. And also check them on performance versus target, right? So they might be relevant, but they might be performing at a very different conversion rate level than some of your other search terms. And if you see any sort of declining search terms, that could tell you that maybe it's time to shift budgets. So if nobody's currently going to be buying flights, but people might actually book hotels because they need a quiet space without kids screaming around you to have an important meeting, that might be a thing, right? So maybe you shift some budget towards that. And so the script, the link is right there at the top, and hopefully somebody's putting that into the chat. Okay, and then so one interesting thing about COVID that really struck me was the landscape is just crazy, right? Every day, new government regulations, and these literally depend from state to state, county to county, city to city. There's a lot of confusion. I did a panel yesterday on PPC Town Hall with 3 Australian panelists living in different cities, and I asked them, do you guys know if you can go to a restaurant in Sydney right now? And the people who didn't live in Sydney couldn't answer that, because who knows what Sydney's doing, right? Now, if you're Olive Garden or you run ads for a lot of different restaurants, that really complicates things, because whereas in the past you could just run one campaign for the whole United States and be like, come to Olive Garden, we've got unlimited pasta. That's different now, right? Like in some places you can go to Olive Garden, in some places you can pick it up, and in some places it's just completely shut down. So what we started looking at was, how do we have a good data set that looks at all of this? And so Oxford has hundreds of researchers, and they're basically tracking 17 types of responses, including containment and closures, economic policies like supporting restaurants, and health system policies. And what we decided to do was take this data and make it available through tools and scripts, so that you could actually start to understand how performance changes as these local things are shifting. And here's a quick video. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but as the map gets bluer, that means there's more government response being put in place. And this is day over day, right? And you're going to see the map get really dark blue at this point, which is around the middle of March. And then you're going to see it get less blue all of a sudden as some of the restrictions are being lifted. But what I just want to illustrate here is that the world is super dynamic, and that's really complicating things for us right now. So this first script, which you can pick up and just install into your account, this is basically going to overlay the government reactions on top of your local PPC data. And so you can see there on point B, that's when mass gatherings of 35 or more people were being banned in a specific location. So if you haven't installed scripts before, very easy, just copy paste them into Google. It's going to generate a spreadsheet. Once you have that spreadsheet, make sure you run some filters on it. So because the spreadsheet has every location where your ad has gotten impressions, filter that down to a specific location, and then it automatically shows you the chart for that location with the specific government restrictions. And now you might see some correlation, you might not, but at the very least, you can go to your boss and say, listen, this is what happened in the world, this is what the government did, and this is how it may or may not have impacted our PPC performance. Now, that was the first script I did. The second one I did a couple of weeks later. And so we started thinking about, well, there's policy versus behavior, right? So the government is mandating certain things, and in some cases that means they allow business to operate again. However, that doesn't mean that the consumer feels comfortable going back to those places. And this is a piece of research from the Washington Post. And the one that's interesting is while going to a retail clothing store, 67% of people feel uncomfortable about that. So even if that store is open, chances are the consumer is not going to go back there. So as opposed to just looking at what the government is doing, you need to look at what are people actually doing. And so that's the second script. This script detects geo anomalies. So you will get an email and it will say in a specific location, which could be a country or a city or a region, you had unusual performance for the day of the week compared to that same day of the week normally. Okay, and so what this email is showing you here is in the United States for yesterday, which happens to be a Wednesday, there was a 23% increase in impressions versus a typical Wednesday. It doesn't tell you what to do, but it tells you this is happening. And now you can go and take a look at it. And so this is especially helpful once you start looking down to the city level, because now you can start to understand that, hey, there's this specific county within Georgia, which is allowing car dealerships to be open, whereas the rest of Georgia is maybe closed. And maybe that's changing the numbers. And you didn't know that because you don't live in that county. Now you know, right? So and there's a whole data set behind that. Just the anomalies come into email, but everything else it's in a spreadsheet, so you can go and take a look at that. And run any filters that you want. And I think I forgot to put in the link. It is on Search Engine Land, though. If you look on Search Engine Land for my articles, you will find the code for that. I will also share it here later. Third and final point. So automation lets us optimize faster, right? And the other panelists have talked about messaging and being really on point with what is happening. But so if you have car dealerships, you may have ads running like this one. So come to our showroom, visit and meet our advisors. Let's shake hands on a great deal. Whoa, let's shake hands, really? To get a car and maybe die? No, we're not going to be doing that, right? So that's completely out of touch with the current situation. The point I want to make is if you have automation in place, these ads could be template driven. And as opposed to you having to go through thousands of ads and updating them all one by one, you can do it in bulk. But bulk may not even be the right thing because, again, like I said, different counties, different cities, different regulations. And so really what you want to do is have a spreadsheet. And this the first solution at the top here is using ad customizers. So ad customizers use business data. So you just give it a simple spreadsheet. In this scenario, we're giving it locations and we're putting in a call to action text that indicates what you can do. And so the ad now looks like a template. So it says buy a Toyota, and then automatically, depending on the location where the user is searching from, it's going to pull in the right call to action, which is either going to say visit the showroom, or our dealer will come to you because the dealership is closed. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it, of course, is through tools and more of a scripts-based approach. But you can say something like, if from my business data, if we see that that specific location is open, we show an ad that says visit our showroom. Else, if we know that the location is not open, we'll run an ad that says our dealer will come to you. And the whole point of this is that with so many combinations of different cities and different things that you can do, manually maintaining the ads is very complicated. But if you have that business data and you tie it into a templated ad structure, that sort of automation is going to save you a ton of time. So COVID-19 is forcing a lot of people to do things they didn't want to do, but do them faster, right? Everybody's learning how to do webinars. Everybody's installing a webcam. Everybody's kind of setting up a home office. Online education, it's actually happening. It has to happen. And the same thing for marketers, right? So we're being pushed into automation because it's the only time to keep up with the times. And so my title of the presentation was Automation in the New Normal, but I think really it should have been Automation is the New Normal. So again, this is the year of automation. Automation is what's going to allow you to run your business successfully, be more strategic, be more effective, and it's going to eventually enable you to unlevel the playing field. So my contact info is on there. Happy to take some questions now or take them at the end if that's better for time. Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll do one question right now, Fred, and because it's come a couple times, and then for the round table, everyone, after Perna goes, who is next, we'll do a round table with all our speakers here, so we'll make sure we get to all the questions. But so, Fred, there's been a couple about, hey, impression share, and you mentioned When it's not too low or too high, right? But no one knows what that means, right? So I know, right? Like so what is too low or too high in impression share? What number should you be looking at to say we have so little it doesn't matter, or we have so much, hey, this is great? What are some rough guidelines?
I mean, so let's say that if you have more than 90 to 95%, you're probably being too restrictive on the system. And again, this is in the context of smart bidding. If you use smart bidding and you have 95% impression share, the system is going to stay very close to what it knows works, which is good because it controls your performance, but it does limit it from exploring new queries, new things that could help it find new pockets of conversions. So I think that's the more important metric on the high end. Don't be above 90, 95% because it's too restrictive. On the low end, I mean, there it really depends, right? So, so I mean, if you find yourself at 40% impression share and you're driving conversions, obviously you want to be higher, but I'm not saying try to bump it all the way to 60% overnight. Like that's not the right thing. Be gradual about it, right? So take your cost per acquisition target, which may be $10, move it up to, I'm willing to pay $11. See what happens, see where your impression share goes. Keep doing that. And so just the one thing to remember is in the days of CPC bidding, CPC was the lever that we had, and it was sort of the thing we looked at. Now the cost per acquisition target, that's the lever. And we're still going to use those same sort of decision processes to pull that lever. And by the way, funny side story. So why do you need to have between like 5 and 20 keywords per ad group? Which I know has been written about, and it's sort of like what most people would probably
Someone
agree
rolled
with.
a die, and that's the number that came up.
Well, so I did a presentation when I worked at Google, and I was like, I got to put a number on there because people want a number. So I put a number on there. And I'm like, if you have 4 keywords, it's fine. If you have 21, it's fine. It's about the principle of like being thematically grouped because that'll boost your quality score. And it's the same thing here, right? So don't take these numbers as an absolute prescription.
But I want one follow-up here, right? So you said if you've got over 995, you're too restrictive. So what if my budget is unrestricted, right? And I'm at 90. Are you saying I should add more keywords? I should loosen up my match types? What do I do if I have 90% and I'm not restricted by budget?
Yeah, exactly. So you could expand your geographies, you could add more keywords, or you make your bid target less restrictive, right? So you say you're willing to pay a little bit more. So, and then again, it goes into this whole closed variant thing. So Google is now saying, oh, well, we can test more. So maybe let's try something that's got a lower relevance score to what the original keyword was, but let's see how that works.
All right. So thank you, Fred. And Fred's going to be back for our roundtable in about 20-ish, 25 minutes or so. So he's not going anywhere. So our, claps, applause, come on, panelists, we can see all of you. So I can tell Aaron if you're clapping or not. All right. So thank you, Fred. We'll be back soon. And so next, Perna, where are you? I have so many speakers here. There you are. I have to scroll over. So while many of our speakers are nice, Perna might get the award for being the nicest of them all. That just might be her special distinction. Perna, you've still muted yourself. So there you go.
My
so
husband will not agree with your nice comment.
I heard Aaron definitely said yes. I mean, I can clearly see many speakers going, yep, yes, see, look at Nava, right? So like, yeah, Nava's a nice person. No offense, Nava, but Perna's probably nicer.
No.
Yeah,
no.
right. So, so anyway, right. See, there's Melissa. All right. We have a poll right now, right? You're going to win this poll. You may vote against you, you'd be the only one. So anyway, to continue our conversation before we move into our roundtable later, Perna from Microsoft, although she speaks with years of wisdom beyond just Microsoft, is going to get into some DSA page feeds, audiences, and so forth. So you don't want to hear me. I'll go on mute. Perna, please share your screen and let's have some more fun discussion.
Awesome. All right. Can you all see my screen? Do you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry. I use Teams all the time, so forgive me. But hi, everyone. I'm Perna. Thank you so much for being here, especially in the midst of all that is going on. The fact that you're here with all of us at PSA, trying to focus on building your own skills is actually super commendable. So a huge round of applause for yourselves. Please pat yourself on the back. Now, you must have heard a little bit on day one from my colleagues, Christy and Joe, where they were talking about just how much search is evolving during this pandemic. And that's something that we're seeing anyway, right? Any PPC, you've noticed that every month there's a ton of brand new queries that come in. For example, on the big network, 20% of all of our searches every day are brand new, never seen before. Google, on the other hand, reports that 15% of their searches every month are brand new. There's a whole bunch of evolving searches in a regular time period. If we take this time of pandemic, that's just leading to even more and more and more new unexpected queries that keep coming up. Search is on the rise. People are spending much more time at home consuming media. And of course, while you can expect things like grocery delivery or home fitness to go up, every vertical, I'm telling you, every vertical has a whole bunch of unexpected stuff. I was looking at retail and I saw that there's a huge rise in hobbies. Right? Hobbies, which was previously down, is now going up in the number of new searches and queries. Or if I looked at automotive, we're seeing not just an increase in people looking for like affordable cars or cheap cars. We're seeing people trying to buy cars in a whole new way. They want to buy cars online. So it is still nascent, but it is still happening. Or of course, everybody's a bread baker, right? My husband right now has become like the sourdough master at the same time as I'm trying to do no carb. Right. Can that be grounds for divorce, guys? Let me know. We're also all, people are looking at buying more freezers or fridges to stock up on food. Or now that we're stuck at home more, we want to redecorate or Marie Kondo or look at buying more furniture. There's tons of new trends. There's tons of new emerging queries in every vertical. If you wanted to go and drill down into yours, into your geo region as well, you could go to the link that you see right there on your screen, and Microsoft shares a ton of different trends that we're seeing. But that's why I really wanted to choose DSA as my topic for today, because I think that is most applicable to you. Because DSA can help you not just capture those emerging queries, but also show up with a more relevant ad for that. As most of you know, the secret power of DSA is that it can really go and crawl the website to identify themes, so it can show up for ads for even queries that we may not have even thought about. So in that way, it can help you mine and show up for new and emerging keyword trends, as well as for the long tail. And just to share some numbers, what we see behind the scenes at Microsoft Advertising, if we look at the performance of DSA, we found that not only does it help decrease CPC, but there's also, it shows an over 10% increase in net new click volume. So net new means you wouldn't have gotten this otherwise with your regular keywords. So let's keep that in mind, and that's why DSA is so powerful. But I understand we also want to be cautious with it at this time. Aaron talked about that earlier. So what I want to share with you today are just like two of my absolute favorite things to do with DSA to not just help grow ROAS, but also help you protect yourself as well. The first one, page feeds. Right? Any fans of page feeds here? Like put it in the comment chats right there. I would love to like chat with my fellow page feed nerds. If any of you have not touched page feeds yet, but I've always been like, I run DSA, but it's not worked that great for me. I don't know what else I can do. The answer, test page feeds. Why? Because, hey, they really help reduce the friction of managing all of your DSA campaigns by enabling you to upload just a simple spreadsheet of just all the URLs you want to target versus having to create individual auto targets for each URL. Plus, they can also help give you a small conversion rate boost as well. In our data, for example, we found that B2B, they can see about a 3% conversion rate increase when they've enabled page feeds. B2C, about a 1%. Again, I'll take any percent, so why not? But again, page feeds are not just for conversion. They can help you in lots of different ways. And if you're using them on Google already, don't forget, import them into your Microsoft advertising account. It's a very simple import. I want to share 3 lesser known or lesser talked about reasons why DSAs are, why page feeds are so important for DSAs. The first thing is they can really help you keep your high priority URLs fresh, because every time you upload or update a page feed, all the pages in that feed get automatically crawled. Whereas just with standard DSA, the pages in the domain are just crawled at a periodic basis. So if you want to make sure that you want to match the pages, keep up with any content changes or headlines accurate, page feeds are really helpful to control the crawling. Plus, I know a lot of advertisers will no index or no crawl their PPC landing pages because they don't want to have duplicate issues with the main website. So now traditionally, if you put that on there, like a no index or no crawl, the search engine is not going to crawl them. But if you put it in a page feed, then that landing page, it gives a search engine permission to go and crawl that page, even though it says no index or no crawl. Again, let me be clear about this. It only will crawl this for DSA purposes. It's not going to be showing up in organic listings or anywhere else, but it will simply be seen in a page feed as permission to crawl that page so it can access it for your DSA needs. And then, of course, it also helps you group your auto targets into things that can't be easily grouped. For example, if I was doing auto targets, I'd probably do it based on URL or page content, right? So maybe if I wanted to do everything that's about red shoes, I would put all of them together. But perhaps some red shoes are much more profitable than other red shoes. So if I could put them in a page feed, I could create custom labels based on things that are just less obvious, like this is high margin product, or these are my sale products. That will give me different information that I can use for bidding and targeting. So definitely keep these in mind. They not only help reduce the friction, but they give you these additional superpowers. Whenever I talk to some advertisers, sometimes they're like, oh, but Perda, it's so complicated, like feeds. I'm not that good with feeds. I assure you, they are not as complicated as you might think. It's a simple spreadsheet. It really only needs one column, which is your list of URLs. The second column, which is custom label, is optional, and you can use it just to create groupings, just as if you were trying to do like your custom tags and product feeds, for example. And this is what it could look like. Here's just an example of a dummy page feed. Now, some of you sharp-eyed ones might have been like, wait, there's the third column. What is that? That is, I'm so excited to share with you. It's a new beta that we have at Microsoft Advertising. It is all about dynamic search ads, but with static headlines. Even though it's a closed beta, that's available to all advertisers who are running DSAs across the globe. And it is unique to Microsoft Advertising. No one else has it. And really what it does is, let's say if you have concerns from your legal team about your COVID-19 messaging, or if you're in a vertical that is much more highly regulated, let's say like pharma or financial services, for example, you could still go ahead and take advantage of DSAs and to use that discovery power of them while still maintaining control over your ad title and your ad copy. So this way it's a really great workaround. So again, like Aaron said earlier, he made an excellent point, like things are changing. You want to try to control some of the messaging so you can protect your brand, especially at this time. If that's something you want to do, take a look at static headlines. Now, as every good infomercial says, but wait, there's more. I have a special tip for retailers. Now, hopefully I have some retailers here with me tuning in. Did you know, you guys, you can use your shopping feed to create for DSAs as well? As a retail client, you already have a lot of product pages, and these pages have like tons and tons of content on them already. So it's a great place to start if you're looking to scale, if you're looking to not have to, recreate the wheel from scratch. Let me scale my own efforts. Take your shopping feed. Here's how it works. Pull out from your existing product feed just the product page URLs, and you can remove everything else from the feed if you want. If you're using custom labels, keep those in. And then this feed information can be used as your page feed file for DSA. There we go, done. And remember, with the custom labels, you can flag high value products or high margin products or low inventory products, for example, via the custom labels. So that will help you when you're thinking about your targeting and your bid months. Why do both? Why do the shopping and the DSA text ad? You want to take more space on the SERPs, right? You want to get more coverage to help you overcome any gaps between queries you might be matching to with your product listing ads versus the ones you're matching with in text. And the targets work the same as shopping. So if there are any gaps, then you can plug those in with DSAs as well. And if you are running any kind of merchant promotions, you can also leverage your merchant promotion feed to help create a DSA page feed based on the product URLs that are on sale for the merchant. And then you can adjust your bidding accordingly. So this way, if you know you're focusing on like this set of products for your sale, then we can make sure that we can even get extra coverage through the DSAs and help DSAs with targeting and bidding accordingly. Super smart, right? I hope you try it. And if you try it, like tweet me and let me know how it works for you. And don't forget to do hashtag PSAC20 as well. All right, my second tip. Now that you have your DSA all set up with all your best practices, like your page feeds, etc., there's another really smart way that you can use audiences. Now your DSA campaigns, just like any campaigns, can show to many different types of people, many different types of audiences. How can I differentiate my bidding strategy based on the user's likelihood to convert? Well, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. The first step, you want to think about creating just a regular plain old DSA campaign. No audiences, nothing. Just create your desired auto targets or page feeds and keep it ready. Then step 2, you want to duplicate that campaign. So mirror exactly the same structure, but you're going to have this be target and bid for custom, for first party audiences. Now, why am I hitting custom first? Because it is your own first party data, so that can be often really, really more powerful. If you don't have custom audiences, you're not able to set them up, that's okay. You can use in-market or remarketing or similar or lookalike or anything that you like. Think about an important audience for you. So in my example, for my second campaign, I did custom audiences. Then in step 3, I duplicated that campaign once again, and I did a target and bid, but this time for in-market audiences. And then the key thing to remember, the tip that makes this work so well is to make sure you're using audience exclusions. So here's what they all 3 look like. So with audience 1, for my campaign number 1, which had no audiences in it, I want to make sure I'm excluding all of the audiences that I'm using in my second and my third campaign. For my second campaign with custom, I'm going to exclude all of the in-market audiences or any audience that I used in my third campaign. And then for my third campaign, I'm going to make sure I exclude all the audiences I used in my second. So for my in-market DSA campaign, I excluded my custom audiences. Right? Are you with me so far, everyone? This helps you, again, what this is helping you do is helping you land and adjust bidding based on people's likelihood to convert. Different audiences will perform differently for you, as you see in your regular campaign. But if you tie this on with DSA, you have the additional advantage of the discovery, and then you can put maybe different negative keywords for each of them as well. We tested this out with a really large big box retail client, and I wanted to share with you some of the initial blinded results. So this advertiser was able to achieve very similar ROAS levels as the non-DSA campaigns, including brand. And what we noticed was, if you look at the ROAS numbers, the no audience campaign had an average ROAS of $20 almost, whereas in market had one of almost $30, and the custom one had like almost 22. So you could see by layering and separating them out, I could then adjust my bids, I can adjust my budget and let each of them go and work their magic. Also, very interestingly, I know you all are dealing with this as well, where clients are either reducing budget or trying to turn off campaigns. This client also was considering doing that. So they turned down volume on a lot of the other campaigns, but what they did was they left these DSA campaigns running because of how efficiently they performed. So that's, I think that pretty much says how successful they were. And remember, we only use custom and in market here because it's what worked well for this client, but you could pick any of your audience campaigns, so standard remarketing, similar audiences, whatever works for you. Just remember, it's as simple as 1, 2, 3. Audiences are your lever that allow you to bid according to their likelihood of purchase. You can just mimic your existing campaign structure as well, and then just put in these audiences separately. And also use it to mine search terms throughout that you can move to other campaigns as well. Right? Super simple, still super effective, and try to do these little changes now to help boost your ROAS. Before I wrap up, I just want to give you 2 quick final tips. The first one is if you are importing your DSA campaigns from Google into Microsoft, I wanted to make sure you're aware that while Google Ads supports the creation of mixed mode campaigns, Microsoft Advertising doesn't. So when we import your mixed mode campaigns from Google Ads, they get imported as dynamic search ad campaigns by default. So that means all your text ads and your keywords are going to be dropped. You also have the option to specify to use the import search and DSA as search campaigns to override that default, or you can just do a workaround. If you so fancy, you could use your bulk sheets of Google data and import them and upload them into your Microsoft Advertising to help you work around that mixed mode campaign thing. The second thing, and the last thing, is that you will, or most likely will, experience a wrap-up period. It can take anywhere from 2 to 4 days to start seeing impressions for your new DSE campaign. And like any other machine learning automation functionality, DSA is not going to be at its best in the first couple of weeks. It's a machine-based learning tool. It's just going to keep getting better over time. So just stick with it and maybe set expectations for clients or stakeholders as well. So, you know, they're not breathing down your neck and like the end of week 1 being like, what's going on? Where's my ROAS? So that's good to know. Let's recap. Remember, test page feeds to help give conversions a boost. Layer audiences strategically to help boost your ROAS. And then be mindful of mixed mode campaigns when importing from Google Ads. So with that, I say a huge thank you once again for having me and for being here to listen.
Brad, the microphone.
Brad, you're muted.
The mic.
I'm muted. There we go. Hey, I'm back now. So what happens when you have I usually mute myself here, not in software. You know, it's nice having that, but I forget. So, one, David will let us know about everyone who's asked for presentations. Evidently, Parna, and I know Parna will make it available if David can't, which David probably will. They want your step-by-step, go figure. Of course they do. Two, why does DSA lead to lower CPCs? You made a statement, you got to back it up now.
I will double check as to why. Those are just the data that we have seen. So it's a good question. I will go back and check with my product team and I'll let you know right after on Twitter.
Okay, because it could just be, hey, it's more it's always relevant page, it's good quality score, then, you know, whatever happens to be there.
I know, but I would be guessing and then I would get, that would not be confirmation. So I will get you confirmation.
Totally understood. So, all right, everyone, let's give our clap for Perna. Yay! All right. So next we have, let me get a list right here. We have Aaron. Aaron is still here. We have Jim Paulo, who is still here. Sorry, I've got my grid here, right? I'm finding all of you. We have Fred, who I know is back here again. And of course, Perna, and we're going to do some Q&A from everyone. We have some questions that are from earlier today, which we're going to get back into. As you have more, throw them in the Q&A box, and we will get through all of these. Well, I can't promise that. We'll get through many of these. Right? You could easily overwhelm us with lots and lots of questions. So I'm going to come back from earlier today, right, where what important PPC management tasks are best handled without scripts? There's a good question, right? What are things that humans are just better than the scripts are?
Well, I mean, I think creative, even when it comes to search terms analysis, you can do it purely based. So you can add negatives very easily based on the metrics and based on kind of like semantic closeness, but adding new keywords, that's always a bit more risky. So you might want to put a human level of control into that. But again, I think the point is, it doesn't mean we don't use automation at all. It just means that the automation takes us to the step of, here's the thing you need to review, which is not a gajillion search terms, but it's the 100 most relevant. And then you make a manual human decision to say, yeah, my algorithm worked pretty well. I approve these. Or it didn't work so well and I'm going to manually tweak it, but I'm probably also going to go back to my developer or my scripts person and get them to tweak it based on what I just did, right? Because there was some analysis that I did, so let's get it as close as possible so that over time I get to that stage where it's a cursory review, but it's not like a half an hour each time.
Aaron, Perna, you have anything to add?
Scripts particularly, I'd say anything that's absolutely huge, because scripts can time out, and they often do. The other thing, and this is a bit of dovetailing off of Fred's comment, that automation touches everything now in some way, shape, or form. So the human aspect, our job is setting the appropriately wide guardrails. So making sure that we give it enough running room, but not too much running room. It's like you would never, I've heard Google say that you should put all your keywords in one campaign and just set a goal with an unlimited budget and let us go. That sounds nice, but realistically, I mean, reading between the lines, trying to pick out intent, since at this stage, most of Google's machine learning, as again, Fred and Perna both talked about, is essentially just looking at a couple of metrics to be predictive based on data. So if there's things that like data can't really say, or that there's no like statistically significant data, or frankly, Brad, our conversation about sideways targeting on Twitter right now, the sideways conversation, I ordered a bunch of wine that actually might get here soon if I run away. And I've all of a sudden seen like 75 ads for wine because all of them think I'm interested in wine, but I already bought it. So that sort of stuff, and frequency capping, anything that you need a little bit of human intuition to,
You talk about frequency capping, how often you drink, or frequency capping in terms of
Tomato.
All right. So I think we got this. Although to Fred's point, right, automation or scripts doesn't mean a human didn't look at it. It means the important parts that need a human's eyeballs were then brought out by the automation. So you had less crunching to do and you could focus the human's time is better, right? That's a huge part of this as well. So will the future PPC manager have programming competence beyond basic JavaScript? They're going to know SQL and Python and Ruby. What's the future of PPC management?
I mean, I'm happy to start with that one as well, right? So I think many of us already have that competence because digital marketers by nature have been data crunchers to a large degree, more so than true marketers. And I think thanks to automation, that is shifting a bit. And it's sort of that final analysis when we look at the keywords, when we look at the ad text, when we look at business goals, it's about understanding the messaging. How do we make a compelling argument to a potential user, right? It's about the positioning, the pricing, the things that are classically thought of as marketing. So I think it's good to have a core understanding of those things because it connects you to how the systems from Google and Microsoft work in the back end to achieve your goals. And if you don't understand how that's working, then it's somewhat difficult to tweak the levers in a way that is going to make sense. And I kind of liken this to being a photographer, right? So I started actually as a digital wedding photographer before I joined Google. And so I had to know exactly how the camera worked because I had one chance at taking a great photo. Now we all have these great cameras in our pocket, in our phone. And so we just take 100 photos and we just assume that there's going to be a great one. And that's okay in photography, that we don't know how to set an exposure, how to frame something properly, because we can always fix it later. But it's not okay in PPC because every time you take a photo to see if it's the right one, like if that photo is a click, to test if it's actually working, right? Every click costs money, right? So we have to understand sort of the underlying system quite well to be able to get the automations as close to where they need to be as possible by giving it the right inputs, the right business signals, so that we don't end up wasting $1,000 to learn something. And Google is gladly going to take your money to learn, and it will learn, but your client may not be so happy about $1,000 to do experiments when they could have told you that, hey, this is not a great ad text, or this is not a great keyword because we have some business experience around that. Right? And so kind of a long answer to the question, should you have these basic skills? And I think it's important to understand how it works, but I don't think you necessarily have to be able to write full big SQL statements or write your own JavaScript code.
Yeah, say Aaron and I don't think either one is for coders, right? We know how to tell people what we want and make them go do the work.
So I can give you a little funny history lesson about Uncle Aaron's education. I went to college with a bunch of AP credits, so I could have graduated early, but I like college, so I didn't want to. So my senior year, after I had interned in a digital marketing shape for a big company, I just kind of impulsively got a second major in information systems for exactly the reason that Fred described, and Brad, exactly what you just talked about. I don't want to code. I want to know how to speak the language so I can talk to coders. It's a much different thing. Are they necessary? No. Will they be valuable? In certain spaces, yes. I can say that the times that you really have to run a SQL query is pretty rare for pretty legacy databases. Most stuff has a much more friendly front end at this point. Would they help to learn? Would they get you along? Maybe. Do I think they're going to be essential? Probably not.
Jim Paul, anything to add over there?
Yeah. I was thinking that the first question. I completely agree with Frederick. And I would add that no vital function is really, you really need a script to run it. No, I would say any of the vital functions of the account, of a Google Ads account, Of course, they are useful, but they're not vital. And I think that more or less the same for PPC management softwares, so PPC management platforms. They are useful when you have complex account and budget, big budget to manage. Of course, they are far less necessary when you have simple accounts and the basic automation of the platform is going well. For the rest, I completely agree with Frederick and Aaron.
All right, so I'm going to put another question next because you segued us into it. I was going to wait on this one, but I'll add it now. So what's the future of PPC software? Will it be at the forefront of innovation in terms of features and benefits, or where's it going? Any one of you. I know Fred has thoughts here,
I was
right?
going to say,
obviously have thoughts
you
here,
and Fred
right?
should answer this one, if anyone.
That's yours.
We are much faster at building stuff than Google. I know that for sure. Microsoft probably, although we prioritize Google for the most part. But that's the funny thing, right? And that's a little bit the reason why I left Google too, is because once you get to be a 60,000 plus organization, and now it's much bigger than when I left, but there's just more decision makers. It's a more complex system, like things take longer. And one thing that I fundamentally know from my days at working at Google was we tried to build something that would work for everyone. And I keep going back to the statement from Sridhar Ramaswamy, who was 2 years ago the SVP of the Google Ads product. And he got up on stage at Google Marketing Live and he said, Google Ads is advertising that works for everyone. And what he meant by that was that even if you're a small business and you've never done digital marketing, you need to be able to go onto Google, go into AdWords or Google Ads, and set it up and get good results from it. And that's why we're seeing all this automation, right? But the 200 people on this session right now, we're not your average small business. We are here to be PPC rock stars. And so we do things a little bit differently, right? And so the interface that you're going to get from Google is not going to facilitate these things. And so we're having arguments about to SCAG or not to SCAG. Well, listen, if you want to do SCAG, Google is not going to make that easy. A piece of software, mine, will make it really easy. I don't know about Brad's because he's not a fan, right? But fundamentally, we want to look at best practices. Like, what are we talking about? Like the triplicate campaign structure from Perna. I mean, a tool can probably handle that a little bit quicker than the Microsoft interface. Now, are they going to build it? Probably not. They're probably going to say, just go into the editor and triplicate it and then put in the right lists. And here we can write a piece of software that says, click a button, and it does it, and it maintains it, and you can go and do some strategic stuff instead.
Yep, I agree, right? You build for, we don't have to make everybody happy. We need to make the people who use our software happy. So, we don't build some people who spend $100 a month, just not something useful to them, right? We support SCAGs, by the way, Fred. I'm not a fan, but you know what? Enough people want them. We said, sure, we'll support these.
Exactly.
Again, right? You're building for what the client base wants. And yeah, I see something like, for the person who asked the question, what's the difference and what should we use? That's for you to decide. There are people who use both of us. Fred definitely has more e-commerce tools than we do. We probably do more with scale, where we have more people who spend $1 million a month than under 10,000 a month on our platform. They're different. People who use both. So I'm not going to say we're better than Fred or we're worse than Fred. I've known Fred too long to say that. I'm going to say, hey, you're smart people. If you're here, we probably both offer demos and trials. Go take a look.
And the one thing I will say, Brad, is you can afford Brad's tool and my tool for a fraction of what you will pay to some of the legacy vendors.
No kidding. You can get both of us cheaper than Mariner Kenshu or SA360. Right. And so that's why there are people who use both of us. We don't take like your firstborn child and your secondborn child just to run an account. We're both marketers. We actually still look at paid search accounts, right? So we care about your results and we understand your results, which is a huge difference too. So
is it okay if I chime in on this
recovering? Yeah, in fact, 1 second, Nava, then yes, you can. So unfortunately, when I looked at the agenda, I invited the people listed on the agenda. Nava should have been on the agenda. She is not. So Nava, please come in and chime in because I was unaware of this. So sorry for leaving you out. You of course are, you're not Parna level nice, but you're pretty close.
That's it means the world coming from Brad level clever. So the reason why I wanted to chime in, I'm actually recovering from the software world and like living and breathing software solutions. And one of the things, to be fair, WordStream serves a slightly different audience than Analysis and Optimizer. I actually think it's the opposite. I think the native platforms for the SMB audience are evolving in such a way that it's making softwares obsolete for the everyday business. So where we look at the average person, what is the average business? The average business, unless you're an enterprise level corp, needs a landing page that can collect forms, process payments, take phone calls, and that's it. So when you think about what software solutions are going to win in this market and like what software solutions to look for, it's not about can you make my life easy in one platform, is can you make my life not only easier across all the platforms I need to be in, and it's not just Google, Microsoft, say Facebook, Instagram. You might be thinking, if you're a local business and I mean, granted with COVID, it's a little bit different now, but like Waze and being able to integrate there. If you're looking at Twitch or you're doing any streaming plays, you need to be able to integrate there. So if you're the everyday person, the native platforms have actually done a pretty good job of being a free solution. So it's not like you need software to do anything. And I realize that this is a very sour note to end the what software solution should we use. So if you want to call on someone else to like change the palette there, I'll totally understand.
Most things a software can do, a human could do. It's the question of how long does it take you?
Sure,
right?
but
I mean, it's a time thing and it's a machine learning. Can it make better decisions?
But the native platforms can do that too. Like automated bidding is the native platform solution to scripts and bids.
Right, and so
Facebook ads and like there are dynamic ads that like they'll create those. So it's not a question of do you need software? It's a question of is the software that you're going to use help you efficiently across all of the channels you need, not just a single solution. Because that's really where I feel softwares have been challenged and forced to grow, is that you can't just be good at one thing. And it kind of goes back to that earlier question about what does a PPC manager need to do? They can't just be search. So I feel like a lot of softwares get stuck in I just have to replicate features so that they meet their minimum functionality requirements, that they keep their premier status, blah, blah, blah. But it's really about the right solutions are going to be ones that allow for all channels.
Right, you got to go above and beyond what the engine does, and you cannot compete with what the engine is really good at. And so I completely agree. Like, how many bid management companies have we seen go bankrupt because you don't have more data than Google and you're not going to set bids better than Google? But we all know as business people that we have insights into some of the business drivers, and that needs to modify the levers that we give to Google. And you guys have heard it a million times from me, but like the whole lunar cycle example, right? Like Google has looked at that as a potential quality score factor. Does the lunar cycle impact click-through rate behavior? And by and large, they found it did not, so they don't look at it, they don't consider it. However, if you are a psychic or a maternity ward, the lunar cycle actually does have an impact on your business, and you should tell Google, hey, tonight's going to be kind of a big night for us because there's a special lunar phase, right? And I think that's where you have to look at a tool. So a tool that's just replicating or trying to compete with the engines on something they do really well, that's probably a bad investment of your dollars. But there are vendors, and I think that's where Brad and we actually have tools that go above and beyond.
All right. Aaron, anything to add before we just close this topic off?
I mean, look, part of my job is that I get to do demos of everything. So if any of you are tool providers, odds are that you have sent me a LinkedIn message and I have sat through your demo and I've asked you the same question, which is there's three questions that we look at, like ROI is the biggest one. And that can take, as Brad said, there's the performance aspect of like it makes your performance this much better, or it saves this amount of time we'll look at that from an hours perspective. Like, we think this tool can save us 100 hours a month, so the tool's worth $10,000 to us or something like that. And the other thing that is sort of a combination of what you all said, albeit in a little bit of different ways, is, does it do anything materially different than the engines do? And the answer for a lot of the basic features is no, at least not anymore. You know, if you were to buy a Search Ads 360 or a Kenshu or a Marin and just do the same things that you're doing in Google in a different bucket, that's not helpful. If you use some of the advanced features, if you do new stuff, if you do stuff that's different, you'll get a lot more out of it. But if, as I think all of you said in different shapes, if you're just trying to replicate in a different interface, don't. Approach the tools with a problem that you're trying to solve and then figure out if the tool tries to solve it. Don't look at them as, that's a really nice screwdriver, I really want one. There's no point unless you have things to screw in.
All right, let's close this topic. So attribution models, right? Let's go to something less controversial. All right, so right now.
No, don't forget, right, to leave some time for the hospitality question.
Yeah, okay. I will. We'll do that one next. All right. All of our data is a little messy right now. So how are you thinking about attribution these days?
I think the same as we ever did. You're looking to prove incrementality and effect on the bottom line, and basically, did our marketing do something that wouldn't have happened by itself? Looking at it the same way, I think what we're largely doing from, and this is, attribution may not be the right way to categorize this, but a little bit bigger. We're gonna have to look at new COVID customers differently than we're gonna have to look at old customers, because we talked about the panic buyers, the people who just went from store to store until they find someone who has hand sanitizer in stock. I gotta think they're not gonna convert off of our email list or our retargeting list later. They just sort of got there. So trying to figure out how to evaluate them in different formats. Certainly there's a lot of bleed over, but this is more opinion than what we've seen in data. But there's a lot more randomness now in conversion than there was historically. So the tests that we're running now and the things that we're seeing for our clients is, you kind of got to explore it in a little bit more of a vacuum than you might otherwise.
Yeah, we immediately duplicated our lists, renamed the new ones COVID, paused the old ones so that we can separate out everyone individually, because we know they're just different, right? All right, so the question Giampaolo wants to get to, right, is how will the hospitality industry behave post-COVID-19 recovery stage? You must have some thoughts here.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, we can come back to Nava.
I just needed to share a story, but the story can wait for Giampaolo's amazing answer.
Is your story attribution or is it hospitality?
Hospitality.
Then wait a second.
Okay.
Giampaolo, go for it.
Okay. As I chatted before, I have several activities, several companies active in the tourism industry, which, as you can understand, has been hit hard by the COVID. And my suggestion for all was all the same. And someone didn't care for it. They just posted everything. And someone followed it. My suggestion was, okay, let's reduce PPC and budget at the maximum. You can have bids and budgets at the maximum you can. Lightening a little of impression, of course, having a little of impression for them. Why this? Because of course we are speaking about search campaigns, not display. In search campaigns, there is someone who is searching for your places, for your destinations, for your service in that destinations. So after the COVID blockade, they are going to do something about it, unless they are crazy people searching for something and decide not to do anything. Of course, they know the situation. But if they are searching for someone, and now there aren't, I think maybe at the beginning of history of Google, there was the same number of advertisers in the industry, in the tourism industry. You will never have another occasion of having search paid SERP in so free of ads in the tourism industry. Of course, we would have liked not to have COVID, but here there is. And so my suggestion is, okay, lower bids and budget at the maximum you can, but keep going with campaigns because you will have some people searching for you afterwards. So now that's yours.
Okay. Wanted to make sure got it all out. And I fully agree with you. So the story I wanted to share was actually a really clever campaign by a local hotel to me. I live in Rhode Island. It's the Omni Hotel in Providence, and they're running campaigns about elopement weddings, where because we still have you can't gather in more than groups of 10. You have this intimate affair, filling the room, and so even though it might be at a discount, you're still getting commerce back in, dollars on the books, and you're showing that you have compassion in heart. So it's not just that like your wedding had to get pushed or canceled. You're creating a solution while also still generating revenue, albeit far less than you would have normally. And so I think the path forward for the hospitality industry is those sort of innovative solutions and being open to working within the confines. Another really creative solution, granted, it's a little bit scammy and gimmicky, are those all-in-one resorts pushing for book now. You can have it till the end of 2021 for $149, just to get some commerce in. But the reason why I like those sorts of campaigns, it's reminding people that you're putting the work in to make your spot safe, but you're also, to Gianpaolo's point, even if it's not full-on revenue, you're still getting some dollars trickling in, and you're keeping your campaigns on, so the data isn't fully lost. And it goes back, thank you so much for citing our PPC Town Hall conversation, just that when you turn campaigns off for a prolonged period of time, you are going to struggle. So just having some kind of breadcrumb to keep your brand top of mind. I like Facebook a lot more, honestly, for these sorts of campaigns than search. Happy to have a discussion about it. But yeah, I really see a lot more hospitality dollars going to social over search.
All right, so something I want to chime in here on the hospitality people, and it goes to what Aaron had mentioned about the ads earlier. So Jenny is here. We were a couple weeks ago, right, when we first saw the trend coming up of hospitality spending. I went and looked at cruise ads. I could not find a single cruise ad that mentioned what happens if they cancel. What happens if you're doing something different? They turned on their old advertising. Right? It was the same as pre-COVID. I was like, what are you doing? So Jenny, if you have anything to share on the hospitality data stuff, right, feel free to chime in. Jenny knows everything from all the stats and stuff standpoint, right?
I don't have stats off the top of my head. What I have noticed though is that it looks like a lot of these companies are like still have their control ads on. So I'll see that, like when I do searches, I see the new messaging, but then, you know, if you refresh or come back and do it elsewhere, I'll see the old messaging. So I think that in a lot of cases is what's happening. Either controls are still on, nothing's been done, no one's testing anything, or, you know, they've still got that old messaging set running. So I've seen both. I haven't seen anyone on search. And again, this is really anecdotal, but I haven't seen anyone really doing a great job consistently messaging on search in hospitality.
It's I just posted a thing in the chat. I love economics in general, and it's a short lesson about the economic concept of pent-up demand. So they talk a little bit about China, and Marriott really released their earnings pretty recently, so you can read the earnings call and see what they're seeing. China's operating at like 25-ish% capacity where things are open. So Nava's point about cash flow, I think what we're going to see from a consumer perspective is really early in the pandemic. This is looking at my little bubble, and a bunch of people were buying flights that were on sale and hoping they could go on them. I was supposed to be in Scotland a couple of weeks ago. I'm clearly not in Scotland. But what I would expect to see is that given how many people did that, which I'm sure was a lot, and given how airlines and to a degree, obviously hotels are struggling, I wouldn't be surprised to see that pent-up demand be a lot more of a leak rather than a tsunami, because people aren't sure if they'll get their money back, or if it's no longer about, can I take the trip or not? It's, will this place be in business to refund me or not? So it's an iffy answer. Again, pent-up demand, the concept is all the stuff that you couldn't do during the pandemic, you're going to try to do a lot of it, but I'm not going to go get 6 haircuts to make up the ones that I missed. I might go on 6 vacations though. So when it does release, I think there will be a little bit of a tsunami effect, but a lot of it might be local hospitality, like going to the restaurant that you can go to.
The only thing I'd add on this is is that it's not just hospitality either. I think we're seeing the same thing in retail. So I just like half an hour ago tweeted out the home pages of Amazon, Target, eBay, and Walmart. And there is one company that is at home, stay at home centric, and that is Amazon. So, when I look at that, I think, okay, well, Amazon, obviously we know that they are like huge data-driven organization and can optimize like no one else. So either they know what's going on and the other 3 don't, or the other 3 are seeing a like aspirational, like we want to appeal to like people's sense of normalcy. And so we're just going to have our spring clothing sale on our homepage. And so I don't know, I would say the whole thing is psychologically really interesting, and there's so much in these trends, I think, that to your own business, whatever vertical you're in, to really be looking at what the data is showing you, and also it might be a lesson that the big people don't always know what they're doing either. Right?
Yeah, because you know what? So like something I've noticed, right, with some of our advertisers and people like, we love REI, right? It's so their website hasn't changed, but they did look at the email zip codes of every customer and put them into buckets of, you can come into the store, right? You can do curbside pickup, you can only online order. And so they sent out nice emails to the groups, but they didn't change their websites, right? And so that's where I forget whose point it was earlier, who showed the nice charts of like, probably Aaron, but I don't remember, of the different types, right? Sometimes the messaging exists, but it's not consistent to the website, which could just be IT lockdown and no one knows how to change the homepage.
There's some of that. There's, I forget who it was. Ginny, it may have been our conversation where we had a sneaking suspicion that a certain hotel advertiser furloughed their paid search people and no one knew how to turn it off. And it was just like still going because nobody knew how to do it.
Yes.
It's
odd. I can't remember which one I found that. I can't remember who that was, but yes, it was sad. It was,
yeah.
You clicked through the ad and then it was some, deals, ad, promo, click through, and it was a dead page basically.
So yeah. I think it was, I won't name the hotel company. They ran all their ads, but then every hotel was closed. And there wasn't messaging, right? And so what was the point?
Well, and we've had some, and well, this is again going back to retail and less about it, but we have one client that actually have a couple clients that sell scrubs, nurses scrubs, and they had a pre-plan on their marketing calendar sale for I think it was early mid-April, and that was a really long discussion. Like, do we still do this? Does it make it look like we're virtue signaling? Do we specifically call it something special? And if we do, are we taking advantage? It's a really complicated branding question for a lot of places.
So the takeaway here, right? Let's put this last 8 minutes in a easy synopsis, right? Is A, beyond search, what does your homepage actually say, right? What do your customers see when they go there? Are you ignoring the whole thing? Are you addressing it? Whatnot? If you're running search, what are you getting out of it, right? That's always a question. Like, why are you doing this, right? Why are you running search? What are you trying to do? What are you getting out of it? Is it future revenue? Is it, hey, we're not open now, we will be soon? Is it, hey, we do curbside pickup, order as usual, just don't walk into our store, right? Then, right, have you, and I'm going to go back to Aaron's point, because I think messaging is so underdone properly in search, right? So Aaron's slides, and get the example, Aaron. So you should just tweet out the example. I'll reference it for you, Aaron, right? Of how do you not be, we're in this together, but we understand the current world, right? So it's more, have you seen the big picture before you get to the little details? And, you know, we're paid search people. Nava loves Excel, man. I love pivot tables. In fact, no one said pivot table today. I can't believe it. I feel like we can't be talking search. But sometimes the big things have to be done before the little ones matter, right? Okay, so, hey, I love this question. What element of PPC management is most underestimated?
Time management. I'm just going to go ahead and just say time management.
Oh, time management. Sorry, I thought you said client management. Time management.
I mean, client management too, but that actually feeds into time management. I like to have my team, and whenever I'm consulting with folks, do you have 5 minutes dedicated to PPC monitoring? Do you have an hour, 30 minutes or so dedicated to each different client task or project? Have you divided your day by the tasks that you do best in the morning versus the evening or afternoon? What I think a lot of people fall into the trap of is that they'll just leave their calendar open, and then tasks just pile on, and then you end up actually running around in a lot of circles, but you don't actually get anything done. So if taking scripts and like monitoring bids, that's a super easy one. Delegate to that to the machine. But going back to the point about creatives, creative work is not always best done at all points in the day. And a bit of creative can take 5 minutes. It can take an hour. It depends on what the scope of it is. So I'll throw it out there. I think time management is underrated. I'll also throw it out there. Excel is also a little bit overrated. We can use Google Sheets. It's okay. We can also embrace the fact that we're more than just spreadsheets now. We innovate profit. We're not just bound to data. I mean, we love data, but we're more than that.
So now the only thing I have to say is next time you do this, I want a Star Wars reference in the background. You're missing, right? Like I think Star Wars. Where's the geeky reference?
My Zoom will not let me have images. I have a whole slew of them that I downloaded for May the 4th, and sadly no. But shout out for Minnesota Search. If Adam's still on the line, I will be doing a Star Wars themed deck on May 28th for Minnesota Search.
All right. So Jim Paulo, I know you have a lot of thoughts on optimization. What do you think is missed the most, right? And you have a different perspective. You come a little more European than, of course, we do here. What do people not get right, or what do they not spend enough time on?
I would say conversions. I've been contacted a lot of time by people saying, "Oh, I need optimization. I need PPC to manage my PPC account correctly." and they're not tracking conversions. I still can't believe it happens, but it happens. So the real thing people is underestimating is that if you don't track conversion correctly, you would never, ever have an optimized PPC account. That I would say this is the core the core feature people is underestimating.
Fred, you have any thoughts on this? You see lots of advertisers and what they're doing or what they're not doing, right?
Yeah, I agree with Jean Paul. It's shocking how many advertisers don't have conversions, or they have conversions, but they know they're incorrect conversions, and they haven't been able to get it to this stage where they actually feed correct data into the system. And honestly, like being able, and like to Nava's point, time management, like sometimes you just got to take a step back from the day-to-day active management or figure out how to keep doing that by your team. But like, how do we fix conversions? How do we get the correct data in the system? Because you can't get to the next level if you don't fix that. And to Nava's point, like Excel being overrated, I think Excel is great, but I think the time we spend in Excel, that's where we shouldn't be, right? We should be, what is it we do every day in Excel? Like, why can't we go to a developer, a JavaScript person, and just say, like, build this out, put it into a script, and then just give me the output? I mean, half of the scripts I put on Search Engine Land now, like they don't really do anything other than create a spreadsheet that's got like 5 data sources and everything's pivoted in the right way. And you can make your decision. And like, that's what we should be doing. So it's really a combination of everything everybody's here been saying. And I think the other element, and you alluded to it, Brad, but it's the creative component, right? So like Google's really good with the numbers, the mathematical stuff, but connecting with our prospective buyers in a way that's sensitive to the times, and that puts, you know, the right, and pushes the right buttons. Like that's something the machine can't really do quite yet.
All right, so I'm just gonna add the last 2 questions. I know we had more. We are gonna wrap up soonish so that we can get to happy hour, and you know, we're not here the entire day. So when we look over the next, let's say 3 months of time, right? And obviously I'm making up time frames. No one knows. I mean, Twitter's closed for the next 10 years if you want to work at home, right? Like you can never go back to the office again. So maybe that'll be the new norm. But so assuming, it's a big assumption, governments get things under control. Let's assume all of us have competent government structures. And in the next 3, 4, 5 months, right, things go back to normal. How do you, as an agency, right, get your clients back to where they were, or communicate with them, or bring them back if they've canceled, which happens a lot of cases? B, as an in-house marketer, transition to non-COVID messaging. And then if, right, worst case happens, we open too early and there's a second wave, right? And what pushes back into this? Do we go back to we're all in this together? How do we think about that marketing if we have a taste of freedom and no, it's gone? So what are you guys thinking about over the next, you know, say 3 to 6 months, right? Of COVID, post-COVID, maybe re-emergence COVID world.
Well, and I think, okay, so I've seen responses in different places, and I'll take it back to my kids' education, right? 2 days after the counties locally here shut down, and we were some of the first in the United States, our school had online education, and they basically said, we're not coming back to the buildings for the rest of the year. We're going to have to figure this out. And then in other places, it's like, we'll try to reopen in 2 weeks, like just stay home, maybe read a book, blah, blah, blah. And like clearly no effort being put in to thinking maybe things have really changed, right? And so I think going back to normal, like it's not going to be normal. It's going to be different. We're not going to be worried about dying anymore at the same levels when we have a vaccine, but like how we educate, how we commute to work, how we do business, like all of that has changed. And the things many things will stick, right? And so I think for us, it's about how do we help our businesses, our clients make that transition for that new world where restaurants might actually become grocery stores at some level, right? Like, I mean, I bought cases of wine at my local restaurant, and that was a great experience. Like maybe that should become a thing. And so it's about how do we figure out what is going to stick and how we help our businesses first of all, survive this crisis in the near term, but then how do they actually build a new business around what they discovered is possible?
Those are great questions. Do you have any answers for them?
Well, I think it depends from business to business. So I was talking to some folks in Australia yesterday, and there they have like a food delivery app that's basically using a restaurant's own wait staff to be the drivers doing the deliveries. And so they don't have to pay 30% on every meal. Like, I mean, that's a solution in that space, right? But I think it depends. And all I'm saying is be innovative. Like, don't limit yourself to waiting for things to go back to normal. Like, figure out how can you be a winner given how things are changing, and considering that it could be 2 years before, you know, people get to physically come into my store, into my restaurant, before I don't have to body temperature scan every one of my people in the warehouse. Like, we have to innovate, and it's the innovators that are going to be the businesses that will be our customers 2-3 years from now. And so obviously whatever we can do to help them transit. And so from a very specific agency perspective, it's like everybody, like, we've been managing bids, we've been managing creatives, but now it's like, hey, do you guys know how to go into Google My Business to put in the flags that says you can actually do a drive up to get your stuff, right? Maybe that's not a service you've offered because it was too low value, but you actually have that expertise and you know what can be done to, in the very near term, help that business even make it to the next 2 months.
What do you think, Nava?
So I'm smiling because what's been really fascinating coming out of COVID is where SEO and PPC have been kind of butting heads quite a bit. I feel like this actually has brought us together because we've had to integrate far more. GMB is a great example, especially with the verification of data. The other thing that's kind of interesting is, and Fred, I'm really glad you made the point, is consulting clients not just on PPC, but on business and how to pivot their models. One of the things we've been doing with our clients that's been tremendously successful is helping them set up virtual consultation links so that the conversion action is not just call and make an appointment to come into our office, but set up a virtual consultation. And you could have that as quickly as possible. And it shows empathy, but it also embraces the fact that remote is now, I think, far more important and part of our culture than I think we were willing to accept it to be a couple of months ago. And as much as we can begin to embrace and proactively anticipate remote tendencies, not just in our customers, but also of our employees. I think it was Ginny that mentioned it. There was this horrible job description, and I think, Aaron, you also replied about how we have a gym in the office, free lunch, all that, and it's like, that's not useful. So as much as we can help our clients think about remote tendencies, remote business models, and it's true for commerce, that's a little bit harder, for hospitality it's a little bit harder, but most things we can layer in that virtual component, and adding that business consulting part to your offering is I think more important now, just because you're already a trusted voice. Sorry, you can hear my dog. Just adding in that consultative piece.
Excellent. Gianpaolo, what's your thoughts here?
I think a big difference will do if we find a treatment for the COVID or not. Besides the vaccine, if we find a treatment and this becomes something like a regular flu, I think things are going to be similar, much more similar to before in a short time. If we can find a treatment, a sure treatment, a safe treatment, of course the situation is going to be hard for I think at least one year more. But I'm quite optimistic about it.
All right. Finally, Aaron.
I have things to say. When do I not? No, so ironically enough, I had a slide in my deck that I took out, and I still think it was a good choice. But I like looking at historical follies, times when we got stuff wrong or got it right or made really weird decisions. I highly suggest all of you look into the Halley's Comet panic from the early teens, I think. For those of you who don't know the Halley's Comet panic, the entire world thought that a comet was going to fly by the Earth and it was going to fart out noxious gases that was going to kill everybody. Needless to say, it didn't. But there are a bunch of people who made money on like comet jewelry and end of the comet world things. In any case, there's a resounding theme that you see from all of these issues. The other challenge, I mean, COVID has often been pointed back to the Spanish flu in, what was it, the teens, 20s. And my little home of Philly is also the poster child for bad decision making. And they had a parade to sell and celebrate war bonds, like right after the first wave tipped down. And then they held a parade citywide. Everyone had all this pent up outside demand. And then 30,000 people died. So in my looking at how everyone else has screwed up review of the world, the people who do the poorest coming out of these dramatic events are the people who immediately go back to normal. The people who make a hard right angle turn back to going back to normal. The same way that people who made a hard right angle turn to turn everything immediately off are the ones who are struggling the most currently. So the advice that I would have is there is no on or off. There is no like, well, there's kind of a pre-COVID, but there's not really going to be a post-COVID. Something's going to change. It's not going to be a light switch back to normal. My recommendation would be to be as flexible as you possibly can with your planning, budgeting, things like that. Write things in pencil, even more so than you normally would, because you're going to have to adjust, especially if there is a second wave and we all shut back down. If there is a second wave, I'm sure we're going to shut up. We're going to close up tighter and there's going to be more demand, but we're going to have lessons to come from. If there's not, that would make me very happy, but we'll see.
So you guys must be engaging speakers, because you know what? Because we were running out 15 minutes late, we extended this. We're actually even over that. And our audience is still all here. So that's a testament to our speakers today. Thank you guys so much. And girls, for Nava and Perna, who her Microsoft computer rebooted because of course they have IT controls and never came back. So Microsoft, you know, gets Microsoft, I suppose. So, you know, audience, again, give a nice thank you to our panelists here. We've enjoyed it a huge amount. We're about to start happy hour. So I'm going to turn it back to David, who your wonderful host who's done so much. Hey, David, thank you. I mean, we should all say thank you to David. So he has organized this. Mike has done an amazing amount of stuff. I know, Mike, you're just sort of there smiling and nodding away. I know you've done a lot of work in the background too. Lisa, who is not on my screen at the moment. There we go. Lisa, every time you have questions, graphics, you know, Lisa's there. So it's not just speakers, right? I mean, the people who organized it really get credit. One, before there can be a speaker, there's got to be an organizer. So, hey, thank you, Lisa, David, Mike, others here who aren't even viewed right now. What?
Gianpaolo.
Gianpaolo, yeah, of course, right? You spoke and organized, right? I mean,
right.
You know, so just thank you from speakers to you too. With that, I'm giving it back to David to take it some happy hour and some good times.
Okay. So yeah, thanks, Brad, and thanks everybody. Speakers were great, and we've all really enjoyed this. This has been the closest thing to getting together at a conference that some of us have had in a long time, and we appreciate that opportunity. In that spirit, this next hour or so is going to be the happy hour. It is not necessary for anybody to drink, okay? So, especially if you're driving afterward, you're not required to drink. Oh, wait a minute, nobody's going to be driving. Anyway, here's how this is going to work. The people on the screen, first of all, if you are seeing just me at the moment, you might go up to the top right of your screen, and where there should be a button that'll let you switch to a mode where you can see everybody that's on camera in true Hollywood Squares Brady Bunch fashion. And I think that's a more enjoyable experience than just looking at the person who's talking. So here's how this works. Those of you in the attendee list here who would like to join us in this special Zoom room and either share a drink with us or just get to know us and we get to know you a little bit, even if you don't have a camera, as long as you have a mic, type into the chat box right now and we'll tell you how to get in. I'm actually going to be picking a few people out of the audience initially. I see somebody named Mona E. Now, if that's Mona Elisali and you don't join us, we're all going to be very upset. So Mona, if that's really you, type in the chat box. Meanwhile, I'm going to invite Corey right now. Let's see how I do this. Corey Lindholm. I'm promoting you to panelist. Now that this might, oops, I should have told him I might kick him out and he might have to join. And then while he's coming back, I'm going to promote Jyoti.
Or you might be muted if you're trying to say hi.
Who is?
I'm seeing Corey in there.
Oh, you are? Corey, you might be muted, or his audio might be starting up.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, Corey.
Hello.
How you doing?
Great, thanks, guys.
Where are you located?
I'm here in Denver.
Denver. How's the weather?
It's beautiful.
Nice.
Not as great as your background, though.
This is actually not at all dissimilar from what I can see if I looked out my window right here. Hey, Jyoti, I'm going to promote you to a panelist. You might get kicked out and have to come back in, but you can deal with that. And never heard from Mona. She's very shy, but how come I'm only seeing 5 panelists? Are there truly only 5 panelists on camera? I see 11. Aaron, did you turn off your camera? I see Corey, do you have a camera? And Jyoti, if you have a camera, could you turn it on? And if you don't want to do that, could you turn on your mic? I think everybody else might be drinking. Frederic had to leave. Laura, I'm going to pick you, Laura. You've been very active participant. So Laura, I'm going to try to get you in here. And you're promoted to a panelist. Oh, I overlooked Corey Nisbet. I'm going to do that with you too. What are you drinking, Mike? I can't hear you. You're muted.
Rum and Coke, David.
Oh, no kidding? Wow. You're taking this seriously. This is really actually fake wine. It's not really Cabernet Sauvignon.
It's actually root beer. It's a better story.
Nice.
You know, they make a beer root beer now. I've got some in the fridge. It's an actual beer that looks and tastes like root beer. Best of both worlds if you need it.
Well, sounds good.
Nice. Hey, Nikki Coleman, I'm going to promote you to panelist. And I feel like I know you from somewhere. Okay, so I'm going to look at the panelists here. We've got some people that came in. Corey, we can't hear you. Neither Corey. Oh, wait, there's Corey Lindholm. You're upside down.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone.
to shake things up a little bit.
Nice. Very nice.
That's an interesting trick.
Wow. Hi, Nikki.
Hello, how are you guys?
Good. How you doing?
Good, thanks for 3 days of great info.
Oh, good. I'm glad you liked it.
Yes.
Why do we know your name?
Are
you on PPC chat a lot?
I'm from Jumpfly. I do PPC chat,
Okay.
I respond on there, and
right.
I wrote for one article, I think, so far for Search Engine Watch.
Cool.
I've been around a really long time.
Really?
I've been doing paid search for 18 years.
Wow.
So.
That's almost as long as Frederic has been alive. What's it called, Brad? The root beer beer. We have a question for you, Brad.
He just walked away. Is it not my brother's root beer? Or not my father's root beer?
Oh.
What's it called? You're muted again, Brad. Gotta turn your microphone on.
You are completely correct, Nikki. It is not your father's root beer is what it is called.
God.
If I can get
That's
a good, it's all I have too much light coming in my windows here.
That's some good stuff.
Okay, the people that wanted to join, you've kind of scrolled away. So if you could type in to the chat box again.
You know what, David? They should type into the Q&A box because that doesn't go away and they can keep chatting as usual.
Oh, you know
easier
what?
probably for you to find them right in the Q&A box.
Wait,
That's not used as much.
Mona just typed into the Q&A box and she said it's me. Mona, if you're too shy or you're not equipped to join in the party, cheers to you. Haven't seen you in too long. Hope you're doing well. All of our love. How many people here know who I'm talking about? Brad, you know Mona, sure. Okay.
Yeah, for a decade, I don't know, right? Like too long.
Mona is the VP of everything that Andrew doesn't want to do at Page Zero.
In Toronto.
Right.
No, she moved Vancouver.
Yeah, right.
She Vancouver, Toronto now. She moved, right?
Yes. Okay, Tyler, I'm going to bring you in. Here you go. Stefan, thanks for joining us. Nikki, where are you located?
A suburb of Chicago.
Chicago, okay. And Corey, are you in Denver? Or was it the other Corey?
I'm in Denver.
You're in Denver, okay. I like your geometric pattern back down.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And Tyler Young, where are you from?
Chicago, and I'm joining Brad.
Oh,
and
wow.
Not your father's root beer.
Nice, very nice. Do you
Tyler,
feel better?
where are you at, Chicago?
I am downtown. I'm right next to the Aeon Center.
Oh,
hey,
I know
we used
exactly
to work
where
in the
that's
Aeon
at.
Center.
Microsoft's offices are in there.
Yeah, I'm right between that and where like Omnicom is, and far behind the Regency, next to the Aqua.
So Tyler, here's your hint. Make friends with someone who works high in the Aeon Center. We used to have the 68th and 70th floor. Then go watch the fireworks there. You look down into the fireworks off the pier. It's really cool.
Nice. Wow.
That's neat. Yeah.
I just promoted Eric Clark and Jordan Cohn.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Eric Clark, how you doing?
I'm well. It's a little cold here, but I'm well. I'm well. How about y'all?
Real good. Boy, we're supposed to guess where you are by your background, which is really cool.
Yeah, you'll never guess. Bogota, Colombia.
Oh my God. You're absolutely right.
I'm at 10,330 feet. It's a little chilly up here.
Good Lord. What's your story?
I'm a PPC guy from 1998, worked at Radio Shack. used to serve on the board for the Dallas-Fort Worth Interactive Marketing Association. I did that
nice.
for about 2 years. Yeah. Bill Leak, I know him very well down in Austin. I'm old school like him, but I just got tired of corporate life one day and decided I'm going to lock the door, go to South America, learn Spanish. Here I am.
Wow. I want your life. No, wait a minute. I have a good one. Never mind. So did you learn Spanish? Are you fluent?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
I've been down here 10 years now. So yeah.
Wow. Are you doing PPC? Are you doing PPC down there?
Yeah, I am. I have a couple clients. I'd still, most of my clients are out of the US, just small things that, you know, as long as there's no drama or corporate politics.
Wow, I want to go there.
Yeah, I'm not quite retired, maybe semi-retired.
Yep.
But yeah, I now have a big client here called Leaneroo. They're a financial company, a fintech company, and another one that sells insurance online. Everything's still kind of new here, though. Even after, you know, you figure all this started in pretty much 95, 96. The rest of the world will be caught up, but they're not. So
sounds like an opportunity.
It is an opportunity. It is.
Very
nice.
It's
been a fun ride. Fun ride.
Hi, Laura.
David, I've got to jump off for those pesky client things.
Okay.
But David, Mike, Lisa, AJ, who, you know, thank you guys so much for speaking, running this. This is awesome. Everyone who's still hanging out. Remember, when David finishes this, your PPC, your member organization discount expires too.
That's right.
So if you want to become members and do more of this stuff, right? Like support it.
Good point.
Thanks, David and Mike. Hey, great job.
Thank you, Brad. You did a great job today too. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brad.
Hey, Laura, where are you?
I'm also in Bogota, Colombia.
Oh my God. How is that possible?
What?
How far away are you guys?
Well, Eric's at 10,000 feet, so that's, I don't know where that would be.
Yeah, I'm in La Calera.
Oh, okay. I am in Santa Barbara, the neighborhood.
Yeah.
A little farther away.
Yeah.
Not as high as the Calera.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a little cold up here.
Oh yeah, I bet.
So Laura, tell us about you're working with a company that's launching a product, is that right?
That's correct. It's called PPC Ad Editor.
Oh, you're one of our sponsors.
That's right, yes.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Also, I think Nathan is also on here.
Yes, I am. Hello, guys.
Who's that?
Nathan. My name's Nathan.
Oh, hi, Nathan.
Hi. I'm a project manager at the PPC Ad Editor.
Okay. Great. Nice to meet you both. Thank you
Likewise.
so much for being sponsors.
Oh, definitely. It's a great opportunity.
So where's the company based?
California.
Okay. And Laura, your accent is perfect English if you're actually Colombian.
Yes, I was raised in the U.S., but
okay.
I was born in Colombia, yeah.
Wow. Very good. I wonder if Eric's accent Spanish accent is as good as your American one.
No, it's very gringoso, but yeah.
Is that right? You speak.
My regular accent was Texan or still is, but.
Yeah. Got that.
Yeah, I have a very bad accent in Spanish.
PPC Ad Editor, that's got to be a difficult brand term, huh?
Well, we tried our best.
Why don't you give us the elevator pitch for the tool?
Nice. So, one of our head guys is kind of a PPC expert. He couldn't make it on today, but he came up with an idea because he was going back and forth with so many pharmaceutical clients and just working at different agencies. And what he came up was just presenting the ads was difficult. And so he would always, plug in the build in Excel. And then after Excel, he'd have to re-import that build onto Google Ads Editor.
Okay.
And so we came up with an idea. Hey, why don't we create a project management platform, a collaboration platform, where instead of do it on Excel, you could import it directly from editor, or just download, sync it from whatever you've got live on Google Ads, and you could present it in a kind of like a friendly format instead of Excel. And then we have like collaboration, commenting, and inline edits, real-time edits, kind of like Google Docs. The way you want to imagine it is like Google Docs. Everybody's kind of like collaborating at the same time on a build.
Yeah.
You're like editing the keywords or editing that copy, and then going back and forth in terms of like trying to get it approved with the client. And so that's kind of what we did. We put it together so that it's easy to collaborate between client and make it easier to present it to the client so that they get the idea in terms of strategy and things like that. And we were, yeah, no, it's great. And then we were just on LinkedIn surfing around, and we met Mike, and Mike introduced us to PSA. We're like, oh my God, we should probably join this association just to kind of meet like-minded people. And he was very good. Yeah, he was kind of like I guess a lead-in for us, because we didn't know anything. Mike was like, hey, I'm part of this association. You should check it out. We did a lot of research, and we prepped for this kind of the conference that you guys had, and we've got our entire team listening to all the information. We're trying to like recap it so that all the people that follow us or use our platform are aware of what's going on and things like that.
Nice. Hey, hold on for just a second, because I have to say hello to my good friend Mona Eliseli. Here's virtual hug. How you doing?
Hug back. Sorry, it took me a while to get all connected, but oh my God, I love hearing everybody's voices. I feel normal. This is great. So
yeah,
good job over there with the conference.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really fun, and now you know how much fun it is being a part of the Paid Search Association and part of the board, because we have board meetings and it's like hanging out with your best friends, right?
Yeah, it's I can only imagine. So
yes, I'm sure you can.
It's fun when you can mix work and pleasure together.
It sure is. Let me introduce you to Corey Lindholm over here from Denver, Tyler Young from Chicago, Eric Clark from Columbia by way of Austin, or the other way around, Laura Vasquez from Columbia as well, Nikki Coleman from Chicago, and I don't know if you know AJ Wilcox. AJ is a board member and one of the speakers as well. He's a young man, and
AJ, I've seen your name around, of course, right? So
yeah, he's the world's leading expert on LinkedIn advertising.
Nice.
Take it.
Hey, Lisa.
I'll take it.
Hi, Mona.
I'm going to get Brett in here. Where's Brett?
Is the gang here? Is it like us? Are we the hardcore people that stuck around? The people
yes.
that down the gallery?
Yeah, this is billed as a happy hour, but drinking is not required.
Oh, wow.
No, especially if you're driving.
I would love to hear from members of PSA the benefit more than what's on the website, because I want the company that I work for, Jumpflight, to join, and I need to make a pitch of why. And I've looked at the website and I have some ideas of my own, but I'd love to hear what the value is from members that they've got out of it, that I can make it really hit home.
That's a good question. Do we have any members on the line here?
I can just say quickly that it's very helpful to have content that's paid search specific, that's been vetted by such high intelligent, high IQ experts. There's so much PPC content that's out there. It can be very hard to traverse that. And just relying on a publisher like Search Engine Land unfortunately doesn't always work out. So just having that pre-vetted content is huge.
So Nikki, what he's talking about is we put together every single day an email that is distributed to the members that has between 5 and 8 to 10 links to articles and blog posts that comprise the very latest news about the platforms, techniques that are groundbreaking, and they're all curated. So in other words, it's much more efficient than looking on lots of other sources trying to pick the articles and the blog posts that are really going to be the cream of the crop. So that's one benefit. And thank you, Corey. Appreciate that. Any other members?
Well, I mean, we have the member forum. We have a new benefit that we haven't even communicated yet that will have badges for each level of membership so that they can show, you know, that they are members and they're very serious about paid search. And, you know, there'll be many other members. We're doing a survey on the site now. We've had quite a few responses in just the last 2 weeks, but we are a relatively new organization. We've been taking members for less than a year. Right now, we're at 212 members. So what we do to a large extent will depend on what you want us to do.
Yeah, a couple things that are, Lisa, do you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the great benefits is the networking and access to your peers and other experts in the industry. I mean, I feel that, and I've been a speaker and a writer for a very long time, but just, you know, having a more direct line to reach out to people has been awesome. It's been a great benefit for me.
Yeah, all members have access to the database of members unless they choose not to access that. In other words, you have control over your personal data, but you could, if you choose, access information about other members.
Let's see, a couple other things that are in the works. We will, at the moment, we have a list of resources for people who want to learn and get certified in not just PPC advertising, but subcategories. That will turn into something more formal. And we're talking with some partners about what can be offered there. We definitely will not create our own coursework and certification. Some of us have been down that road with other organizations, and it's a nightmare, or let's just say very difficult. But we will be offering something in the category of education where there will be some kind of PSA curated and blessed certification that will hopefully be meaningful to employers.
Yeah, I think this event is a good example, and I'm sure there will be many others to follow, and also some sorts of mini events. There's also a discount right now, a discount code.
The discount said it ended at the end of the conference. So how long will it last? And does it account on a professional or just a individual? Do you know?
I think Mike can answer that one.
I actually have it ending tomorrow at 5 p.m.
Oh, okay.
Sure, way to make it, you know, sense of urgency.
Yeah, really, right.
You have another day, but 5 p.m. it ends.
Yeah, PSAC20,
Yes.
right?
Hmm?
PSAC20. I wrote it down. That was one other thing I was going to use is like, let's do it. So
Yeah, so
a little time to convince key parties.
Hey,
And that's
Mike.
across all membership types too.
Okay.
So you
Hey,
would
Mike,
also
Mike, at what level does a corporate sponsor get to include all or an unlimited number of employees?
that's at the 2,500 level, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. What's it called?
That's the.
I can look it up.
Yeah, let me look it up because I'm getting too tired.
Hey, Brett came in. Brett Bodowski.
Hey guys.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Good. I've forgotten where you live.
Oh, I live in Philadelphia.
Oh, that's right, Philly.
Yeah.
With near Aaron.
Very important question.
Go ahead.
It's for AJ. Are you dancing or are you on a walking?
Yeah, I just got to get down and boogie. I know I work on a treadmill desk, so I generally mute the video just because I know it's really distracting to bob up and down.
I see your head going like.
I want to do that too.
David, your question about membership levels. So the Diamond corporate membership for $2,500 gives unlimited members, as does the Platinum sponsorship at twice that.
Okay.
And if you have, so if we have 40 employees, do we have to do the Diamond? It could be just the ones that you, I don't know. I'm not following how that works exactly.
So we have professional membership, which is normally 100, so it's 80 now.
Right.
We have silver corporate membership for up to 10 members for $400. We have gold corporate membership for 800 up to 25 members. We have diamond corporate membership for 2,500 with unlimited members. Those are, so I guess the gold probably wouldn't completely cover your team, the diamond would.
But if we didn't want, let's say we wanted to test it and I could only get them to do the silver for the first year.
Always upgrade.
Okay.
And would pay as the difference.
He's cautious, and right now things are tight. I'm sure a lot of people understand how that is. So
But PPC Ad Editor upgraded their membership from silver to gold, and they paid the difference in those two. And these are yearly memberships that are a year from whenever.
Got it.
Yeah, we saw
a nice job of
the membership, and then we saw that we could get a bigger logo by paying more. Now that I'm learning that we could get a higher level diamond, and I didn't hear it was elite or something.
Platinum.
Yeah, platinum. That's where we're going to strive to get to.
Wow. Bless you.
Thank you.
That's it. Work your way up. I like it.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is good. It's good questions because I didn't realize there was a diamond level. Lauren and I, we were just trying to figure out, and Mike hadn't told us, we could pay the difference. We're like, heck yeah.
Nice. Muchas gracias.
Pays for it's good beer money, right?
Can't argue with that. I have a question too for Mona. Mona, are you going to attend the virtual Burning Man this year?
Virtual Burning Man?
Wow.
I thought let me look it up while we're talking.
This is good information.
Yeah.
We should all go together.
We should all go, yeah.
Really?
We're halfway there with the beer.
We all have to have flaming backgrounds, right?
Or psychedelic ones.
I'm going to post this into the chat box. It's called the Burning Man Multiverse.
Wow.
I haven't. You're more up to date than me. I'm not that up.
But they don't have a mailing list, a psychic mailing list that.
No, not that top.
Bummer. Yeah, let's organize a PSA group to go to Burning Man Multiverse. We can get dressed up. We can do ecstasy. No?
Be Spider-Man and go into the other multiverses. That was a great movie, by the way. I don't know if you guys saw it, but
no,
it's a great Spider-Man into the multiverse.
Uh-huh.
It's like, I thought it was awesome. It's an animation, but I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. It was entertaining. The storyline was good.
Nice.
But, yeah. I don't know. I thought that was the reference from the Burning Man. I thought maybe they got it from somewhere. Yeah.
Could be. So they're saying they're going to build Black Rock City in the multiverse. We're not sure how it's going to come out.
So has it officially been canceled? I'm assuming yes.
Oh, yeah.
It has to be. That show takes like years to plan, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this story came out April 10th. I'm asking Mona this because she attended the physical, actual Burning Man, what, 2 years ago?
I went 2 or 3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
It's a must do, I think. So.
Yeah.
And I think depending on whoever you are, like I think it has a stigma for being for X, Y, Z people, but
Right.
you know, I think you find everybody there. I think you find like you know, Sergey Brin and you know the Google guys there, and I think you find you know everything in between, right? So it's really neat to the art is amazing. The people are so nice. Everybody's just like, it's just a really, I don't know, utopian society, I guess. And you can, it's like a Disneyland. You can do whatever you want. You can go to, there's lots of talks, believe it or not. So you can actually get quite smart at Burning Man if you focus on academic topics. And then they have all sorts of, every topic under the rainbow. You could do tapping, you could do, you know, whatever it is that interests you, right? So, yeah, there were some talks on technology that I went to. There were talks on, and the people are very approachable. Like at Burning Man, I don't know, maybe you wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable at a conference walking up to somebody and saying, hey, blah, blah, blah. But at Burning Man, everybody just talks to everybody, right? So it's not a big deal. Like status and labels and all that kind of stuff is just stripped away. So it's really, it's really neat. It's a really neat experience. I would highly recommend it.
Did they have like stratification, class stratification? In other words, I read an article a long time ago about certain sections where the Silicon Valley billionaires had multiple RVs stacked up. And did you see any of that?
You know, the way it's set up is that they have these different camps, right? And then you could, you know, some camps have tents and then some camps have like all sorts of fancy stuff, right? So I know that it was quite popular at one time to go to these plug and plays. So it'd be like booking a hotel. You would be like, okay, I'm going to come and stay at X camp, and X camp would provide you with, you know, a bed and a, you know, food and whatever, right? So I think they're doing away with that. I think it's another thing if you bring your whole team in and you set up your own camp, but to invite people and to charge them money to a camp, I think it's anti Burning Man principles, you know? So I think they're kind of trying to do away with that. That's what I did. I just kind of like a bunch of people were going. I was in a camp with 100 people that I kind of knew maybe 10 of them or 15 of them. We all paid probably a little too much money to go. But I didn't have to like cook, and I didn't have to clean, and we had showers and, you know, all this kind of stuff, right?
Nice.
It's very anti-Burning Man, though. Like Burning Man is very like, you know, you should have dirt in your hair and like. Gotcha.
Well, Eric Clark just came back, and he probably heard Burning Man and is wondering what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go. I'll make it maybe next year.
Well, it won't be this year because it's going to be virtual. It's going to be virtual this year. They're calling it the multiverse.
But maybe it's a place to kind of check it out and see if you like it. Getting tickets is a real annoying thing. Like trying to get a ticket to go to Burning Man is a real obstacle. So if you can attend without having to run through all of those headaches, you know, and like it's like a 3 or 4 hour, you know, commute from Reno or wherever, you know, so it's quite that. It's a lot of effort to get out there, and you need like, you know, you're in the desert. It's not like you have these clothes in your closet. You have to go and buy all this stuff. Like,
right.
I don't know. This might be an easy, light way to kind of check it out.
Eric, I introduced Mona to everyone else, but I don't think I introduced you. Mona Elisali is the Vice President of Operations and Strategy for Page Zero, Andrew Goodman's company.
Cool.
What is your title these days?
Online VP, Online Marketing Strategy.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I have a little boutique agency called Marketing Doctors, and we started out specializing in medical marketing for bariatric surgeons and urologists, and now we kind of do a little bit of everything. So pick and choose our customers as we want.
All right, nice.
I know that telehealth is certainly very popular these days. We have a client that does telehealth, and like, you know, if they were doing okay, and then all of a sudden COVID hit, and you know, the numbers go through the roof, right?
Yeah, through the roof. Yeah. It's only going to get bigger.
I think so. I think the world is a different place. I think we're a little more cautious as to who we're going to allow in our physical space, you know, our own personal space.
Yeah, I have a question. I've seen business tick up since COVID, even though a lot of industries have gone down. Are y'all seeing the same thing in the U.S.?
Well, it depends on the industry, and but in general, I've attended a couple of webinars in the past week. One of them put on by Microsoft, which was very good. And in general, and it paralleled what I've seen with my clients. There was a pit of despair in March when people started to stay home. They weren't set up to remote work yet. They were trying to contend with suddenly having to homeschool children, and the bottom fell out of almost everything. And this went for both e-retail and B2B, surprisingly. And then things started to pick up, and this was mid to late April. And the assumption has been that people started to mellow out a little bit, get the hang of working at home, had figured out how to sedate their children, and and their stimulus checks came, and they started buying online. In a lot of cases, they were people who had not yet been accustomed to buying online, and a lot of them found out they really liked it, or they really didn't have an alternative. So e-retail customers, some of the clients, especially ones that had products that people suddenly needed more of, kind of hockey stick from this pit of despair in March to increased sales that equaled or surpassed what they were experiencing in January and February. So again, it depends. There are companies that are still horribly affected, like restaurants and tourism and cruises and so on. But the average seemed to be that deep pit, and then starting to come out of it to, in some cases, surpassing previous results. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. We're seeing a thing here, and like I said, Bogota in Colombia, it's a beautiful country, and a lot of things are advanced. Medical services are advanced, but the internet culture for general consumers is still way behind the U.S. I thought it would not be. But what I have seen is a lot of people who are reticent to get online before, and who said here in this area, a lot of Latinos, that internet marketing wasn't effective for them before. Now they're all starting to, think about that. If there's nobody going around and they actually have to drive some more business, there are more and more people going online. So, and for example, I know orthodontist who I've been doing her advertising now for a couple of years, and her office is always full. A lot of people in the industry, even before COVID hit, they were hurting. So some of the early adopters seem to do really well. A lot of online services like insurance is doing well. I work for one company here. They do auto insurance online, and now since COVID, they're trying to ramp up quickly to do other insurances. So I think they're doing home now. They're going to be expanding the whole scope, but they They don't even underwrite the service, so they're like a broker, but they can facilitate everything online. And here, that's kind of considered novel. They're still used to going, you know, down the street or knowing someone, going somewhere to take care of services. So anyway, long story short, a lot of industries here, with the exception of restaurants and travel, they're starting to boom. I'm really, really surprised.
Well, the question about someone posed the question, I think it was answered, about what do we do if there's a second wave? And I think that's a really important question, because I think every business should be prepared to go one way or the other, or one of should be prepared to go both. You know, things are okay and they're going to be okay for a while, and there will be a second wave. You know, advertisers should be ready with ads that are tailored for, you know, we know you're hurting again, and businesses tailored to catering to people that are staying at home because it might happen again. I don't know.
Yeah, the reason I asked that is because we are seeing a lot of content on how to adjust our messaging at this moment, but how do we as campaign managers prepare our, you know, our data collection, or how we're going to use that analysis coming in the next 3 months, right? Because the science is supporting there will likely be a second wave. How can we as advertisers prepare for that? Yeah, I'm glad we were able to touch on that.
Hey, I'm going to have to sign off because I actually have a meeting. So you all can stay around and talk with each other, or we can say goodbye now. What do you think?
I have to take off as well. I have
Okay.
a meeting that I'm 4 minutes late for now too. Thanks for.
Okay. Thanks, Mona. It was great seeing you.
I have to. The party's over for me as well.
Okay.
Oh, y'all, it's great to meet you.
You too.
Yeah, thank you so much for the
Take care, everybody.
information.
See you all again soon.
Thanks everybody for the information about the group. I'm going to go lobby hard right now.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Nikki. Take care.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.